worst thing that can possibly happen to you as like a macro investor who's like been holding gold since like, the 13 dip or whatever, like since 2015 or something. The worst possible thing that can happen is some guy who like wrote all the bullshit VC stuff, like flips like 6 months before your trade starts printing, and you're just fuming. You're like, I don't even want to make money at this point. I want this guy to lose money more than I want to make money. Like, you're just fuming. You're like, you got so rewarded,
Well, let me
Do
show
you ever
right
read
now.
you have a great Substack. Everyone should subscribe. We'll show the link. Um do you ever have like Chamath subscribes and you're like, fuck, dude, like this guy's gonna do all my trades, make way more money than me with all his SPAC earnings?
You get. I mean, I don't check the sub list that much. I'm sure sometimes you see your ideas like get reframed, but that happens to everyone. It's been happening to me forever. That's a part of the game. So I will say on air, I'm very bulled up on ags right now. Okay, like I don't know exactly which one.
You're very
Corn,
bold
wheat,
on
sugar,
sorry, on what? On agricultural?
agriculture, agriculture.
Perfect.
Like the fertilizer thing's real. It's obviously a conflict trade. But fertilizers now, like basically you can't get it. A lot of it comes from the Middle East as a byproduct of natural gas. Where there's certain planting season where if you don't put the fertilizer in by a certain time, the crop doesn't do that well. I'm a little bit early. I'm usually a little bit early on these things, but
So
to me,
buy the
that's
SAS crap now, ride it up, and then 3 months from now you
yeah,
execute Campbell's trade and
yeah,
totally
exactly,
mog him.
yeah, exactly, and then post about it and get like a million likes, and then I'll just
Yeah,
no,
yeah, view mog you too, etc.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
I'm going to
But
rewrite
that
your Substack article, but for like people with a vernacular level that's like 95% lower, and it's going to get like 10 million views.
Claude, rewrite this for someone, like a two standard deviations to the left.
Claude, I need you to hit this in the fucking head with like a baseball bat. Like, I need you to just beat the fuck out of this essay until it is so retarded that everyone in the universe can read it, regardless of what language they speak. Like, not even English speaking is a necessity to understand this.
Dude, I'll say I never believed in gold or precious metals. And then I had an opportunity where I went into a vault with a ridiculous amount of gold, and I picked up one of them.
Right? That's it. That's the thing.
Dude, you know that like EA, like it's like a very rationalist argument, like, oh, a person reads about the color blue for 1,000 years, and then like they, live in a red room, they've never seen the color blue, and then they finally open the door, they walk out, they see the color blue. Have they learned anything? Boy, dude, I learned something, man. Holding that bar of gold, I was like Gollum, man. It was like the ring. It was like, holy shit, like there was just blood memories of like killing millions of people for like a stupid shiny rock just coursing through my. You hold it and it's like, I mean, this is like a
This is why I bought silver, man. Like, this is like the exact reason. This because you
dude,
pick it up and
you
you're just
hold
like,
it and it does
I'm a
something to you,
ball. Like,
man.
I'm gonna start uploading like pictures. I'm gonna make an Instagram specifically to upload like silver bar flexing pictures because of how this makes me feel. I'm gonna
Dude, I
start
think if
listening to
you
rap music for the first time in my life to play in the background of this.
just
Right?
money spreading like silver. Dude, I think if you forced short sellers of like precious metals to actually like physically like borrow like a physical bar and then sell it for cash, I don't think anyone would do it ever. I actually think that would be like the number one market manipulation thing you could do to make precious metals go up is like force the people selling short precious metals to actually touch, like experience the thing of like holding
Take
it.
custody of the collateral that they're
Yeah,
trying to
take custody
destroy.
of the gold and then go to a physical exchange and be like, yeah, I'm selling this to you for this like worthless paper money that like has only ever been inflated my entire lifetime. But like, yes, I am a serious investor, by the way.
So, okay, so you're saying that when you're saying that you are bullish on ag right now,
How does that get expressed, et cetera, et cetera?
it can't be like crop futures or something, right?
I'm doing the futures. Yeah, you can. There's some
Really?
ETFs. I wouldn't do that. I do calls on the futures. You can do the ETFs. I wouldn't do calls on ETFs. They're kind of liquid and very expensive. Um, but yeah, I just bought the futures.
You
Like
can just buy a bunch of
I'm buying
sardines,
DAX.
man. Just buy a bunch of beer.
Buy the stuff.
Just stock it in your
Just buy
basement,
the
bro.
stuff.
Dude,
I mean, look,
Lord
everyone's
knows the
out there
price of a beer in New York is not going to go down. That's for sure.
people are buying oil, being like, oh, maybe oil is going to go for 120, 150. It's like, if oil is 150 in July, like everything is very different. The curve right now, you guys, you know, the futures curve looks like this. It's almost backwards. It's so backwardated, you know, which is the spot price is like 110, and you go like 3 months out, it's like $70. So the futures markets are saying like it's gonna be chill really quickly. And so you can either buy this part of the futures curve, okay, or you can buy the thing that if the curve goes up is gonna go totally parabolic. And so for me, that's supply chains.
So you
It's
have
all
like a
the
ton of beer, you have some Doritos in your basement, you've like stocked up, ready to
you
resell
take
these.
delivery and futures. You show up at
Yeah, it's
Chicago
great. You're on like
or
EBT too, right? Like this is all
and
paid for
yeah,
with government money.
It's the classic egg trade, right? It's like the Reddit egg post meme where there's the guy who like bought 20 tons of egg futures and didn't realize he had to take delivery of them. And he lives in an apartment and he's now posting like, guys, what the fuck do I do? The truck just dropped off 500 pallets of eggs. Like, I'm so fucked. Does anyone want to buy them?
Dude, what I love is the stories about like the preppers who like realize that all their like MREs are gonna expire in a month, and then they're like, "All right, honey, like, all right, kids, we're all eating like canned tuna for the next year,
We're going
bros."
camping in the bunker for the next month.
yeah, there's not a good prepper outcome really. That's what's the problem with prepping. Like, you know, if you're really executing on the prepping,
The prepping we talked about this before we went on there. The prepping is like move to like some ranch in South Africa or Uruguay or Peru. That's like the real prepper
The
thing.
problem, okay, the problem with prepping is, if we're being honest, the type of person who engages in this prepping behavior is mostly retarded. And so they're wrong about how everything is going to break, right? They're like, I'm a prepper, bro, so like I need to make sure I always have ammunition for my gun. So I got my 5.56 and I got my 9 mm, and those are the only 2 rounds that I chamber anything in, right? And then like an actual supply chain disaster happens and things break, and now those are the only 2 rounds that you cannot find at any firearms store in the entire country after only 3 hours of COVID, right? Because everybody else who prepped thought the exact same thing as this guy, and they're all like, ah, fuck, like I appear to not be super great at this. I should have bought like 450 Bushmaster ARs, right? Like, that one
I think
would still be
the
fun.
greatest like prepper trade you can do is like sell like a timeshare in a bunker, and then like if the world ends, rug pull. I think that's like the prepper trade is like sell tickets to the bunker, and then if the world actually like it's all upside always, right? Like you're either selling a piece of cement in the woods for $1 trillion, or you get a piece of cement in the woods
And
that
it's like
like
all the
is
people
now
who thought
the
that they could rent their like bunker, like they're like, yeah, I don't need to hoard guns or bunkers myself. Like this other guy will do it for me, right?
Yeah,
And then
I'll take as the world is ending, I will insist on delivery of the guns.
yeah, they have this piece of paper and they're like, I would like to take delivery, sir. And they just get shot in the face, like just instantly executed.
I'm gonna walk up to the guy who has all my guns, be like, "Oh, this piece of paper I have, you promised. Look at this text conversation we had 4 years ago."
I think it
Yeah.
makes sense to have a battery and some solar panels. That's the extent to which I'm more of a the lights are gonna go out for like 2 weeks kind of guy. That's how I think if you want to prep for something that's actually it's like a put spread, right? You want to cover like a little bit of that downside. If we get the zombie apocalypse, like
You're just
who
fucked.
knows?
You're
You
fucked no
can't
matter what. And
prepare.
like even if you survive, your life is gonna suck anyways, right? Like is the other thing. Like it is just like you're wasting $1 trillion now to have like a moderately better outcome if the zombie apocalypse happens. We were
And
talking
you're
about this
still
last
going to get
episode.
mogged by somebody who's just like less of a freak, right? Like if we do have the zombie apocalypse, all the people who are successful now are largely just going to pivot to whatever the most successful way to survive a zombie apocalypse is.
B2B,
And your entire
SaaS,
life of
ERP for
preparing for a zombie
zombies.
apocalypse is going to be outperformed by like some guy. It's like by big balls, like the guy who was a member of Doge, right? You're going to get mogged by big balls as he pivots more quickly than you could have.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Plausibly Deniable experience, sponsored by Polymarket, Zcash, Citizen X, and Network Press, our beautiful sponsors. We have with us today an incredibly special guest who's been very patient with me as I have just misplaced my laptop multiple miles away from myself. Just the most ridiculous stuff. Welcome, Campbell, notorious for his silver post. Amazing poster, great financial mind, the source of all of my alpha in my portfolio year to date. Just 100% of it, maybe over 100% of it. Yes. Do you want to give us a little background on yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I like the show and kind of honored to be on it. So my background, so I spent some time as a prop guy at Lehman grad school. I was a good fantasy baseball player and a bad uh, PhD student in game theory. Ended up trading vol during the financial crisis at Lehman. Ended up going to Bridgewater for a couple years to help run the commodities group. Then started my own firm to try to give people a hedge on markets, give people a hedge on China. That kind of led to my, I don't know how you put it, but my love affair, my obsession with gold and the precious metals. Um, did AI company, and I'm still kind of doing it for the past 5 years. And more recently, I've been trying to write a bit more about markets. But yeah,
Yeah, I was going to say, let's get into what the silver post was. You can take it away.
yeah. So I kind of I got to silver through kind of two worlds at once. One was just being, you know, if you're long precious metals because you're bearish on globalism, roughly, if you see what happened in 2022 with Ukraine and the US kind of messing with Russia's treasuries, and you're also an AI person, everyone knows about Leo talking about this exponential curve, everyone trying to get energy. Silver is really at the nexus of those two trades, where you have the monetary conditions. If you're a student of history, silver was money for a long time. It was the primary money for a long time. And you also have this huge demand surge from solar power, right? And solar power is in this nice place where it's not a dirty energy and you kind of make it. When you hear about people talking about Dyson spheres, you guys heard about Dyson spheres? If you do the back of the envelope math of like some accelerationist tells you, oh, we're going to make a Dyson sphere, and you go, like, how much silver would it take based on today's technology? It's like 10,000 years of silver production. So there's not enough silver,
Huh.
right? If you actually think we're going to make all these solar panels. And most production of silver is as a byproduct, about 75% is a byproduct. So if you're a commodities guy, and I was a commodities guy for a long time, that's like the perfect setup for a squeeze, right? Inelastic demand, inelastic supply, and a tailwind that you like both in terms of the macro and the micro. And so that was kind of why I started accumulating it. Um, long for a couple years, didn't realize it would go so kind of hyperbolic. It was kind of interesting
No,
that
that
it
was
did.
because I only saw your article when it was going mega hyperbolic. And the big thing that stood out to me was just like, wait a second, there's an actual reason people are using this shit. Uh, I was just like, oh, I mean, gold went up, so everyone's just like, they're like, silver, it's like the cheap gold. I'll buy this next, right? I assumed it was literally just like a catch up echo trade. And then I read your thing and I was like, oh, this actually has like insanely serious demand required by energy production, which also appears to be going parabolic now with
Yep.
all, it's like, what do data centers need? GPUs and power, right? So it's like we have multiple different things getting squeezed all at once, all leading to the silver price action that we saw. I guess are still seeing to some extent. Uh, so yeah, that's why it was such an interesting article to me.
Yeah, man. When people buy gold, they sit on it, right? Turkey just sold a bunch. Like they use it as money. When people buy silver, they eat it. They put in electronics, they put in panels. And so
To two guys coming from the crypto world, this idea that you're not just buying something to sell to somebody else is pretty revolutionary idea, Lucas. Have you ever felt as good as like holding something that you're like, oh, this thing has a real usage?
I actually do have silver bars. Like I don't have gold bars, but I do have like huge silver bars. I don't know, from like probably like 10 years ago or something, because it does feel kind of cool just to hold precious metals, right? Like they are just like a cool thing to hold. I guess now it's even cooler knowing that it's like, wow, like by having this in bar form, I'm preventing some millions of solar panels from being built, right? Like the environment is being destroyed, trees are dying because I refuse to convert my bar. Uh, but it's like,
Yeah, I mean, if you're a government and you are thinking about this is where it ends, I think, and it hasn't happened yet. This is the next leg, which will eventually, once we clear all the retail, like happen. If you're a government and you're sitting there thinking about 20 years from now, take a couple tons of this stuff, make panels out of it, and you can get the silver on the other side of that. You turned in a precious metal from a negative carry asset to a positive carry asset.
hmm.
It's a positive carry monetary asset. And that to me is the ultimate, like the long tail of this bet, which is it's a strategic, critical mineral.
So do we have any solar tech that's coming up that is not relying on silver? Like is
There's
because usually
copper.
when things are getting squeezed this much, my
Yep.
assumption is everyone is just like, we've got to find a way out. Like everyone who runs a production facility that requires solar is just thinking like, I can't be tied to this thing that's going up at this rate, right? Like I have to fucking get out. I have to find another thing that I can use to build this.
So they're working on copper. It's not quite as good, and it's just copper wrapped in silver wrapped in copper,
Okay.
or copper wrapped in silver. I forget in the moment, but and that kicks in at about 120, $140, where they all have to kind of think about backfilling their stuff. It's not quite as efficient. There's some like 30-year tech on the horizon, so it's not a perfect, you know, immutable good in that sense. Like eventually you will get substitution. Yeah.
But are you I mean, you were saying that you can just rip the silver out of the panels after, right, too?
I mean, you got to do like, I think this is a great business for someone to do. You got to do like some, industrial stuff to it, right? You're melting down the thing, you're adding a bunch of acid, you're extracting it but this is what recyclers do, right? When they go
How
and they
like how technically which part of the silver is or like which part of the panel is the silver actually? Like is it used in the interconnects or is it actually used in like manufacture of the semiconductors?
they take the paste. So you have the wafer, and then the paste is usually silver, and then the interconnects is usually silver.
Huh.
And so it's like, it's like the same kind of reaction. And this is where, my physics is okay on this. It's not a great, when we first did photography, right? And the guy with the hood and the taking the thing for like 2 minutes back in 1800s, like that was a silver reaction. So silver has these like kind of conductivity reactive properties, which leads to it being a very good uh, input in a lot of the electrical processes.
Huh.
And then one of the things that I didn't actually catch on your posts, did you express this like mostly through paper silver? Did you actually buy physical? Obviously, there's different markets, right? It's kind of like oil, where it's not exactly the same thing to buy silver in Asia as it is in the US. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? I'm curious.
Yeah, I did both. I mean, I think to your point of the physical, like I think there's this 2%. I always told my, family office friends, like 2%, 5% of your book should be physical. You want to have like if you're in Manhattan, like the zombie apocalypse, like the last boat off the island, like you're gonna want some coins to get off the island, right? If the power goes down and you need to get a gas and some
This
sort
is
of
what I
like
love about the macro investors is like like most investors are like, yeah, I looked at Snapchat's numbers. I think they're going to stop totally screwing over the stockholders. They're going to lower the stock-based compensation. And then you talk to a macro guy, and it's like, you need to buy this because when the island is shutting down and you got to get out of, the like Manhattan from the Dark Knight Rises trilogy, You're gonna need that bar of like, I'm not letting you on my boat. We're boys, but like, I'm not letting you on my boat if you don't have
It
silver.
really does make you realize that all other investors are like when they're talking about risk management, it's like it's a different thing, right? Like they're not even actually considering the risks of like global apocalypse or like total financial meltdown. Uh, and then precious metal
Well,
investors are like, it's priced in, like it's all part of the cycle, right? Like,
yeah, and that's macro. Like, Bridgewater, we used to do a lot of like cross country, a lot of like across time. And like most investors they will talk to, Western investors, they have benefited from the best asset class in the history of time, which is US stocks over the last like 150 years. But if you go to Europe in the 1900s, stocks got wiped out, right? If you go to EM, bonds get wiped out all the time. Like currencies go to zero. And so, we used to have this phrase like all currencies die. And so, you know, I don't think people should have it as 100% of their book. I have in the past, just when I was like really bulled up about it. But like, you got to have some in your portfolio for that tail. And the best part about it is, when paper's getting crushed or when you can't get access to it, that is your liquidity. That's why silver and gold are down the last like month, because it's the thing you can sell when that stuff you can't sell. And that benefit also makes you less likely to puke all the stuff that you shouldn't be puking at that moment. You know what I mean? Like if you can monetize something, make a margin call, like if you have the silver coins and you're not going to rush to the bank and like liquidate your whole 401k or whatever. So like it's just classic insurance. And like, I was an options guy, I was a vol guy. So you got to have that tail in your head. And then that allows you to take more risk on the right side of the risk curve and go long AI infrastructure or memory or chips. That's just all baked in now. But the next version of that, you got to have both tails, as we used to say.
so it's like I guess in crypto, it's the Bitcoin, right? It's like you have to have this one before you venture out into the altcoin
Yes.
land. You just denominate everything in. So do you consider silver to be like a basal part of a portfolio, like you do with gold, or and if so, where do you draw the line? Like when do metals become too like poverty, right? It's like maybe you like gold and then you kind of like silver, but then you're like copper, this is like, I don't know, dude. And then uranium, you're like, this is for kook balls or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you should definitely take into account the volatility of this thing. So, like, silver's moving 20% a day. You should not have so much of it that you cannot take that kind of move. And when it was up at 120, like, and I was pretty transparent about this, I shifted out of long like shares and like these ETFs and started just buying calls and be like, I don't know, man, this thing if it goes, it keep going, but could also just collapse. And then I shifted into like a curve trade that didn't really work, backwardation trade, but like, this like are between silver moving from the US to London to China. Um, you know, I, People say 15% gold. I say more. And probably 5-to-1 gold silver is a good
How do
base.
you guys feel about like Bitcoin and all these other? I'm very interested like in how you guys view new monetary upsets, obviously, and if you don't mind giving a little bit of the background, some of the audience might not be familiar, but Dalio is like famously one of the biggest dollar bears for the long time on the reserve status of the dollar. I'm curious, did you guys ever look at it? How did you guys think about that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to this all reserve currencies die. Like the problem with the dollar as a reserve currency is the problem with all reserve currencies, which is you basically, if you guys heard of Dutch disease, this is like a classic econ framework. This notion of like, if you're an oil producer and all you make is oil, your currency gets too expensive because people are always coming to you for currency to buy oil every week. And that means that all your other stuff is uncompetitive, right? Well, the US is like a Dutch disease country, but for
For
financial
financial
assets.
markets, kind of, right? It's like
Yeah. And for
for the
debt,
financialized products.
right? This notion of like the US housing crisis was caused by savings glut, AKA we run a current account deficit because our currency is too high. Foreigners accumulate dollars. They then recycle those dollars into debt. That pushes interest rates down. That means that a bunch of people go buy houses that they can't afford and the housing thing goes crazy.
And then even, if there's a recession, there's even more buying pressure on the dollar, right? Because it's the reserve currency. And so the idea is you
Exactly,
go
and that's why,
into,
as well, if you're long gold in dollar denominations, which most people are, you get wrong with a bunch because, again, like at the beginning of the war a month ago, the dollar rips, your gold falls. You feel like you're getting crushed on your gold, but if you're gold in euros or gold in yen, you're gold in RMB, which was the trade that I told people to do, gold in China is doing fine, right? It's weathering that storm pretty well. So you kind of want gold and dollars as your base portfolio. Now to get to like the Ray stuff, you know, I'm much more bearish on China, partially because I'm worried about their financial system, which I write about a lot and get yelled at a lot about it. And partially because if you actually look at what a reserve currency does, you have to be able to facilitate capital flows. And that's the opposite of China, right? You gotta be able to get your money in, get your money out, buy stuff in the country, have property rights that are legitimate. Like,
yeah, I mean, the
there's this,
dollar is also like an unprecedentedly distributed reserve currency, right? I
yeah,
mean, it's incredibly, incredibly easy to get your hands on dollars. You can get your hands on physical dollars. You have like koala systems. You have the euro dollars. You have offshore dollars in Singapore, Hong Kong, etc. Um, and then China really limits the capital flows very, very, very heavily, right? Where you have
look
the
at Japan.
onshore
Even
yen
when
and
they
the
were,
offshore.
sorry, yeah, even when they were buying Russian oil with RMB after Ukraine, the Russians couldn't get their RMB out, and that tells you a lot, right? You cannot have a reserve currency where you get a bill. Imagine you're Russia, you're trying to pay for some turbines or whatever from Germany, and you're like, "Hey, I need to pay my turbine bill," and you call up the Chinese guys, and you're like, "Hey, can I use my bank account?" And they're like, "Nope, sorry, you got to keep that money offshore." Game over. Like it's useless. Not to be too dramatic, but yeah,
Yeah, I know. I mean, the U.S. dollar is like a stronger currency in most countries than their own currency, like more accepted. Like people will prefer to receive dollars instead of, pesos or reals or rubles or whatever,
yeah.
which is very, very insane. And so then, why do you guys have this like bearish view, or why was this bearish view on the dollar?
Well, I mean, because of that flow, and because your currency is like a little bit overpriced relative to what the balance payments would normally be, you basically haul out your entire manufacturing, which is what we've done, right? So you get really bad at making stuff, and that over time is like this disease, right? Dutch disease or whatever, where it reduces your competitiveness so much, and you become so dependent on foreign capital that that can become unsustainable. Now, unsustainable in macro can be 100 years, so who knows?
Yes.
But most reserve currencies die when they have a civil war or they lose a war, and then it goes to the next guy. So that it was the livre, French livre for a long time. It was the Spanish currency. It was the Dutch currency. It was the UK currency. The UK is the one that's a little more present for everyone. But basically since Napoleon to World War One, the pound was the reserve currency, right?
Yeah, and
And
it's usually
the
100,
UK,
150 year cycles, right?
yeah, and the UK gave that up to beat the Germans, right? But they didn't give like it wasn't like that they give it up. It was that they went so into debt to beat the Germans that they lost their reserve currency status to the Americans who had this big current account surplus with them to buy
The
all this
Americans
stuff to fight the war.
also, the Marshall Plan is like one of the greatest, as Trump's like to say, one of the greatest deals of all time. Like truly a world historic deal. Which the Marshall Plan was basically the U.S. post World War II. All of the, World War II was kind of the first time there was this doctrine of total war, where it's like, we have these dual use infrastructure, we have industrial products, etc. We have to destroy all of this because we don't know what can be used for war and what can't. The first time you had like mass bombardment of civilians, etc. And so after World War II, all the heavy industry is destroyed. And kind of who's the only guy who's standing is America. And then America does this brilliant thing where it's like, we'll give you loans in dollars, but you have to spend them on American goods. So like amazing, right? It's basically, it's like buy now, pay later on the scale of like a nation, where it's like buy now, pay later, great, I'll give you the loan, but you have to buy from me. So I give you money to buy for me, which I'm getting the money right back, and then I get a loan against you. Um, Great, great, great trade deal. Pushed American, industrial processes, et cetera, and led to Europe having way less, heavy industry for a very long time. Um, and so what you guys are saying, and kind of to explain a little bit, the Dutch disease, the version is, okay, you know, financial assets in the US are great, T-bills are great, we all love those, we love American money markets, we love American stocks. They're the only stocks in the world that get, you know, 40x, 50x earnings valuations. And so, you know, foreign investors love to buy them. What that means is then, for a host of economic reasons, it becomes very easy. You specialize in producing financial assets, which means you're not producing real assets, right? Which is what we actually use. You know, your MacBook is not made in America, your T-shirt is not made in America, etc. And so what ends up happening is your industrial base goes overseas, and this also is something that's happened to the Roman Empire, to, you know, the UK, etc., on and on. And so a lot of the industrial base has gone over to China and generally Southeast Asia. Some few things kind of look like they were going to Mexico for a bit, but I think not really. And what ends up happening is then at some point you keep needing, it's kind of like a Ponzi scheme where you keep needing more and more people to keep buying your thing. And at a certain point, the buying power runs out, the confidence falters in the world hegemon. Like you're saying, you know, you lose a war, it looks like there's a lack of confidence, or you have a civil war, etc. And that's when kind of, you know, everyone starts running for the door. And obviously, in finance, in the banking system, when everyone runs for the door, the system gets much worse than it would be, because the act of people running for the door makes it worse. So for sure, like very, very interesting. And so the way you guys express this, or the way Ray expressed this famously, is that he was very long China and he believed in China. You have kind of some doubts about the Chinese financial system. Do you want to, like, super quick? Obviously, we heard some of the capital flow stuff, but I know that you've dug really deep into the financial system in China, which a lot of people have described optimistically as like shaky at best.
Yeah, the thing that I guess like radicalized me on the Chinese financial system was some of the wealth management products. So wealth management product is a form of unsecured liability that a property company, not even a bank, so Evergrande, right, would issue to a household through a local bank. And the person buying it who doesn't have a lot of financial education gets this stamp from the local bank, and they think of it as a deposit. So imagine if, you know, Lehman Brothers or, you know, Enron or WorldCom or whatever, pick your kind of bank or company, was selling deposits to households that were not guaranteed by the government. They're not a bank, but they thought they were household deposits. And so they had this kind of alphabet soup of financial products. The other one's called an LGFE, local government financing vehicle. And this is like the local government or the municipality, you know, underwrites some big infrastructure project. And they don't necessarily guarantee it, but everybody thinks that it's guaranteed by the local banks and the local defense of the local municipality. And so they have way more debt than most people appreciate, because it's not central government debt. It's not even really local debt. It's an LGFE. And then these assets get put into channeling
So a
through
lot of
these.
times these were like, you know, you were buying a house, but the house wasn't done yet, right? It's like you're buying an apartment that's going to be done in 3 years, right? Stuff like that.
No, this is worse. This is like you're going to buy the house in 3 years. So you give them 100K or whatever. And then you give them another 100K on top for a 6% piece of paper that has no claim on anything, period. Wealth management product. Okay.
Yeah.
And that, to me, when I saw that, I was like, this is garbage. Sorry. But like, this is, you know, gonzo. And so I started shorting the banks and I started shorting the property companies. And what you found was that you actually had a property company bail out a bank called Shenzhen Evergrande, the big one that got blown up. So again, imagine a world where Bear Stearns gets into trouble and their biggest debtor bails them out.
Yeah. Just very incestuous. Like very,
It's
very,
crazy.
very incestuous.
Ford is going to bail out Bear Stearns. What the? How does that even work, right? And so, and every time these things get to a problem, what they do is, you know, if you're short the stocks, like I was, like an idiot, you know, they jam the stock like 200%, and then they delist it for 2 years. Okay. So imagine you're short Lehman, and instead of it just going to zero, it goes up 200% in a week. And then they go, pause. We're going to take a chill for 2 years. You're going to take that mark to market in the face. You can't get it. You can't sell it. You can't buy it. It's just it's on your books. Have fun,
It's like
and
the
by the
Robin
time
Hood
you're out of this
maneuver, right? They're
trade,
just like, we've removed the buy and the sell buttons. Please stand
literally,
by. Like,
suspend it. It's suspended. We're gonna go figure it out,
Enforced
guys.
diamond hands. Government
Yeah,
government enforced
yeah.
diamond hands.
And then by the time it comes back, it trails down to 1 or whatever, and then they like some new made up local government vehicle like buys it out and they wash it over. Like Evergrande, which went well, I was very public about this in all the property companies. So they have about $5 trillion of busted debt. Okay. They have yet to resolve $1 basically of onshore loans to these $5 trillion of Chinese busted property companies. So the
Sorry, five
foreigners all got
trillion
rinsed.
dollars.
5 trillion, and this isn't
Holy
even
shit.
counting like normal credit. It's not counting mortgages. This is just property company garbage debt. Okay, all the foreigners got rinsed, zero. They took a 99.9% loss. Okay, and the banks are sitting there being like, "This is money good," and that's they call it extended pretend. Okay, but
Dude,
their
they
banks
keep
are
calling us scammers in the crypto world, and just the more you learn about the traditional financial world, it's just we're so bad at scamming, man. we're
if
so
only
we're
yeah,
so bad at scamming, dude.
if only
Like
FTX
not
had
even
known.
your most devious token pump could have
Yeah,
just 200% up, and then we're paused for 2 years. Take a two
yeah.
year pause on that one. Keep paying your shorts. Keep
wait, do they
paying
have to?
your
Do they still have to pay? Like, are they still paying funding fees on shorts that were like open on this asset that has
Yeah.
trading closed?
It's just there to work. Like you're just still sitting there, like short the currency,
Just
short the
imagine you're
thing.
like on Hyperliquid and the perp
Yeah,
just like moves 200% in the wrong direction, and then they go, by the way, we don't know what the price is, but we're keeping it here, and you still have to pay funding for 2
How do you even determine a funding rate on a paused market? Right? It's like, well, the mark price is. Just use the one that it was 2 years ago, bro. Like, it's not that complicated.
It's so amazing, man.
and then
Yeah.
every data series that you're following, when it goes negative, they unpublish it. It's just total like, and so you get into this weird conspiratorial world because if you get this experience enough and you start writing about it, and then you get people screaming at you, calling you all kinds of crazy names because you're like, this seems pretty messed up. You kind of get a little bit like, where's the bottom of the chaos? Like how deep does this thing go?
I love
Like,
that like you're trying to explain this very rationally, but you're clearly like you are the guy in the meme that's like connecting all the dots, and you're like, I understand it now. I know. I've gotten to the bottom of it. I know what's going on. But
so that's
you're
why
like
I try to,
really trying to not have your friends and family do an intervention for you and be like, you got to stop talking about the Chinese banks, man. You got
yeah.
to
And I would go in
stop.
front of these big pension funds, okay, and they'd be like, like Bridgewater was here a week ago. Why are you been to the Bridgewater? And I'm some guy with some tiny stupid fund that no one cares about. I'm like, oh, what are you talking about? I'm not. And this was like also like private credit mania, Yale model, like interest is zero. Everyone's we just closed our liquid book. We don't want any liquids. And I'm sitting there with like the Charlie whiteboard thing. And so eventually I just simplified it and I was like, buy gold. That was the trade. I was like, you're not going to listen to me. Buy gold, short RMB. Just do it. Buy gold, short RMB. I'll be back in 10 years. And now it's 10 years later and, gold, whatever. Um, but yeah, like you feel like that a little bit. But, it makes for a good block. So
Yeah, and then you started posting. What was like the first? You told us a little bit off air while we were chatting a little bit, kind of when you started posting. I think that's also one of the things that's very interesting about everyone we've had on. It's like there's kind of a discrete point when you start posting. Like consuming, I think, is more nebulous, but especially if you're posting like high effort stuff. We had DT who like writes books, Kafefe who kind of got big online, etc. Kind of when was like the moment you pulled the trigger, and why did you do it? We're a very bullish distribution. Obviously, Twitter has done a lot of things for Lucas and I, um, and I think nowadays you're kind of an idiot if you don't try to own a little bit of your own distribution at least. It's like very foolhardy, and
Well, it's just impossible. It's not even like It's like you do not even like maybe 10 years ago you would have been an idiot for it, but now it's like it's actually just not even a possible place on the game theoretical like chessboard. Like this position has been blown off the map by like a nuclear bomb because you actually cannot get any distribution unless you do own it yourself, right? You're like it's like what? You're begging podcasters to like please post your
You're
clips or
begging us
something.
to come on the Plausibly Deniable experience. On your hands and knees. Please, Lucas, please, Sayla, please bring me on your schizophrenic podcast.
Well, it's clearly not like the New York Times, right? Like the New York Times is not
Well,
going
we
to have
do know
random
what
people
NATO
on.
stands for. I will clarify. We know. Have you seen this? They got the meaning of NATO wrong, and it's beautiful. It's like great timing because you have Nate Silver like crying about how the New York Times is like a dead Twitter account, which is obviously because like it used to be for like 15 years when you signed up to Twitter, you basically were like forced at gunpoint to follow WAPO and the New York Times. Like they'd be like, pick, if you didn't follow 5 accounts in the sign up flow, they just wouldn't let you start your
Yeah.
account. So you have a trillion dead accounts, and this is like I go through and trim like bot followers. All of these, like if you run a bot farm, it's like, well, I have to make my account seem like real people. What's the first thing you do? You go follow the top 50 accounts, and so it's like it's incredibly obvious that like none of their followers are real. Anyone who consumes the Times is reading it off of email or their website or they're getting physical print. No one is like finding these things. I do think people love pretending that they read articles online and like quote tweeting them with whatever they wanted to say anyways. It's like, like the article, you open the article and like the first word is like, actually, we think entirely opposite of like what the title was. And that's the whole article. But people just quote the article and write what they want to write anyways.
It's literally just like a farce at this point. You have like a headline that is like you have to have a clickbait headline, right? It's like it's just accepted that like you literally get zero distribution on an article unless you have like an engagement optimized headline, which almost always at this point just means like just lie about the headline. Everybody has accepted that it doesn't even matter if you lie, right? Like
No, and
you
unironically, like we have more distribute. Like I mean, you or us, like we have more distribution, more real organic distribution on these websites
yeah,
than most of
okay.
like this legacy institutional media does. But anyways, Nate Silver is like crying about how the New York Times, which is like such a weird thing. Like, why do you care if the New York Times is like getting feedback or not or what? But I guess some article like really pulled at his
No,
heartstrings.
it's because every single person who was like part of like the legacy media apparatus is just like clinging to every single thing that used to be like a pillar of that apparatus and saying like if you bring back the New York Times, like I'm going to be like a real prestigious blue check again, right? Like that's the idea. It's basically like reenact the old media system and I will be cool again. I will have my social credit again. I will be Nate Silver's the like god tier polling guy again.
Yeah, I think Nate Silver like has kind of some of his own distribution, which is actually like why he did so well for himself and why he's like a household name. Is like he owned 538, then it got bought out. They mismanagement. He came back. He bought it again. I don't know where the story continued after that, but it's so funny that he's like crying about how like the New York Times is like legitimate and they need more. They need to be like boosted on Twitter. And they just they like front page get the acronym of NATO wrong, which is incredibly funny. And then meanwhile, we have like Citrini analyst number 3 fucking doing like heroic live reporting from the Strait of Hormuz, which is just like totally goated. Hero, patriot. Literally like whipping up to the strait with a Rolex, 15K in cash and some cigars, schmoozing his way onto a boat, like total hero. And then the New York Times just gets NATO wrong.
Like how did journalism transform from like doing journalism to just like writing AI generated articles with like fake lying titles and now it's like fake journalism is like going on Twitter as like some random guy and like saying like I'm going to go to Afghanistan and like meet up with the Taliban and then post about it, right? And it's like by
Yes.
all accounts this is more legitimate journalism than like whatever the first option
Yeah.
was, right?
Friends of the show, Lord Miles, David Ox, who did the research, were on the ground in Afghanistan, hanging out with the Taliban, heroes, patriots. Yeah, it's a crazy, it's a pretty insane time. We had Beaver on the show as well. I don't know if you know who Beaver is, Campbell, but he won the $1 million article and he's the guy
Ooh,
who
yeah.
created Somali Scan, uh, which cataloged a bunch of fraud in a bunch of states. So yeah, you have like an anonymous guy named Beaver who's like a little milady and is doing like real on the ground fraud reporting. Um, we've had the Doge guys who are like big balls and whatnot. Pretty, crazy times, man.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing that happened in academia and maybe medicine. Uh, I was an academic for a little while, and the irony is I actually got out because of Nate Silver's baseball work. So I have an affinity for him and his like uber nerd days when he was baseball prospectus guy, because I was like playing fantasy baseball with his data because it was more interesting than what academia was offering, which was the version of what you're describing, which is, you know, make 20 useless articles that get into the right journals, like that don't actually say anything, a random million regressions, I got a p hacked thing. And you're seeing like citizen academics now do stuff that normally would be in some sort of, hall of austere, whatever. And
You
I
have
just
like
think
random software engineer who should be winning like Nobel prizes because it's like his wife got some weird disease and he's like, fuck, like I guess I have to figure out how to save this or my wife dies, right? And it's like now it just seems like more and more of the problems in the world are being solved by like this guy than by any sort of large body or academia or the groups that are allegedly supposed to be solving these problems, right? Maybe I'm just hearing about it more. Maybe I'm buying a bunch of like internet scam memes or something like that. But it does truly feel like all of the elite institutions and organizations are just getting like BTFO'd by guys who are bored.
yeah, if you're a fourth turning person, and I'm not 100%, but I think there's something true in there of these big cycles and elite overproduction. I mean, it is kind of the ossification of the elites. Like, you know, why did there's the guy who cured his dog's cancer because he's going around doing gene therapy. It's like
Yep.
if you ever try to like get an MRI, you know exactly why this is happening, right? The system is entirely like broken. It's all full of paperwork. This is why I'm so bullish AI, because like you have this weird equilibrium where all the like fake email jobs are supporting these fake elite structures that are all broken. And eventually people who are just going to paperwork jack that thing with AI. Legal is another example, right? Like we can't process a bunch of crimes, we can get pretty deep on that, but anything that involves the service sector, I think people are really into software is dead. I kind of talked about it a little bit. I think the service economy is dead. Like the notion of like you're going to go to college and then you're going to, get some great like 150K job for the rest of your life, like just pushing paper. Like I'm kind of okay that that is getting automated.
Dude, my big thing is and like I studied a little bit of econ, etc. I understand the argument that like anything you like is 99% correlated to GDP. But there is a point where it feels like that argument starts to lose credence because you think of like the modal person in American City and like who is the modal person in New York is like some girl who moved from the Midwest, studied at Columbia, got like an MFA, works at Starbucks, makes $20 an hour, spends like 90% of that on rent, taxes, and like a psychologist who is like actively destroying her life. She's like getting paid $20 an hour to do a worse job than like a robot would do at the Starbucks. Um, and it's not really her fault. I mean, that's just like the world we live in and kind of the path that seemed obvious to her. Um, but like you look at these people and you go, okay, this person in theory makes like 80K a year. What's like the actual value? Like if you tried to buy this, and this is where like you get into price parity stuff, purchasing power, parity. And you compare like, okay, if you had a barista in China who gets like advice from a priest, the advice from a priest is free and the barista makes like, $2 an hour. And it's like, well, this appears to be getting inflated like 100x. So I'm a big believer that a lot of the urban GDP is fake, and you can keep that bicycle going for a long time. You can recycle money through the economy for a long time. Um, and like you say, like the big issue with kind of these macro bets is, yeah, maybe it takes 30 years to play out. Like it takes a generation to play out. One of the big things that keeps blowing my mind lately is just I keep coming back to, like, from the American Revolution to nowadays, it's like 4 or 5 human lifetimes. It's actually a very short amount of time, in terms of like a human system. And I always remember that one Slate Star Codex, back when Scott Alexander was writing like the greatest essay of all time, where he goes like, I think there's people like slightly more intelligent than me that are like rightish leaning libertarians that keep going like, no, you're fucking with the social nose. I don't know if you know the article I'm talking about. And he's like, oh, you're breaking all the incentives. Like, we had these incentives for 200 years to get married and have a normal life and be economically productive, and you're fucking with all of these. But going back to the, we were talking about the gold and we got out sidetracked. What do you think about like Bitcoin? Did you guys ever look at this stuff? Obviously, it is kind of a money or reserve, but it has kind of these different things where you get, it's credibly neutral. You have a hard cap, which isn't really a thing previously for paper money, for non like commodity money. Did you guys ever look at this, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I actually wrote the first paper on it back in 11 or something, and I was not bullish enough. So, take that for what it is. Like, I was like, this is pretty interesting. I geeked out on all the math, and I like bought like 3 coins. So,
That was, dude, my experience was like I geeked out on it. I tried to, I was like very young when I ran into this. This was like the early teens. And I like tried to convince my dad to buy a bunch of it, and it didn't work, unfortunately. It's just, yeah, it's
well, I got
very
super mad
funny.
because it goes even deeper. Like, my friend from
Are you
Stanford
one of the
sent me.
guys that like lost a wallet with like 100 coins on that or something?
No,
That's
it's
just
more ego. This is just my own idiot ego. So, like, one of the seed investors in Coinbase, who's a very good friend of mine from grad school, sent me Coinbase to give me to like get a look on it. And I tried to trade through Coinbase, and the price moved against them, and they DQ'd my trade. Okay,
and you
and
just
I was like,
raged at them. You were like, I'm never buying equity.
bro,
You're a piece of
I
shit
never.
company.
And then I got really into like the ACH lag because they were getting ripped off at the beginning, where people would cancel their ACH when the price would move in against
Yep.
them. And so
Yep.
they had this really bad one-way trade. And I got super geeked up over it. And I was like, oh my God, they're actually running a financial institution. It's not just an exchange, blah, blah, blah. And like I should just, cut a 20K check and I'd be, calling you from a boat right now or whatever. But
Yeah, I always say that when I'd be like, I always go, I'd be
yeah,
showing up
so
in a
he was right.
helicopter if
I
I
was I
convinced
was
my
smart and
dad.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And dumb at the same time. Um, but my take was always that now I like Circle. I like Coinbase actually because the I think people are very obsessed with the coin itself being the value holder. I think the services on top are the value holder, like the bank.
Hmm.
Like the ecosystem around it is the value. The I know Circle got crushed because they can't charge yields, but I think stables are very interesting.
So
Like
that's like a
very
super funny thing, because technically Circle should go up on that, because actually what happened is not they can't charge yield, but they can't share yield with
okay.
partners that do distribution for them, which means that Circle would be like the government. It's such a funny thing. It's like the government is like, you can't give better commercial economics. It's like incredible. I mean, the banking lobby obviously, is very involved here,
It's
but
like a
it's like a
law. It's
ridiculous
like a
case where
law
it's
where
like,
they're saying we have to protect our citizens from the yield. Like we're
yeah, it's like
protecting
we
you
have to
from
protect our
the yield.
citizens. We can't possibly let a company pay you interest on, what's effectively like T-bill or risk-free rate interest on your stablecoins that you're holding. It's this very strange. It's like, I mean, it's just, we were talking a little bit about Dutch disease. It's like the government is literally coming to you and you're like providing a service where you hold people's money effectively and give them a more efficient way to transact. And on top of that, you're giving them free money. You're like, hey, here's basically free money. And the government goes, you can't do that, which is like incredibly, very, very funny and very weird and very like modal for our times, I think. So you saw this stuff super early. Did anyone like at Bridgewater on the institutional side, was anyone interested, or was it more like you and your friends who were, slinging angel checks and whatnot?
I mean, I don't want to overrepresent my bullishness. I was like trying to be cutesy about it. Like, I think
You thought it was like an interesting thought experiment, kind of, or
I thought it was an interesting thought experiment. I mean, especially back then, Bridgewater could never go on that kind of thing. I mean, this is if you just think about the book size,
Yeah.
when you're managing tens of whatever,
That's the crazy
It seems like
story about places like Ribbit. You know, like Ribbit Capital at one point owned like high single digit percentages of, like most of the
it was
Bitcoin.
Ribbit. That was my friend. Yeah. So it was,
Yeah.
uh, but he did great. But yeah, like, I remember like going to my my boss over the CIO at one point and being like, why don't we, you know, trade these smaller commodity markets? And he's just like, do the math. And I do the math and I'm like, oh my God, like, we're too big.
Your guys' book is just too big, basically.
Yeah, it's like, when you're being a reasonable fiduciary, you have to consider your market size. You have to consider your market weight. You have to consider liquidity in, liquidity out. And is the juice worth the squeeze? And this is the wonderful thing about macro, which is it's one of the only asset classes that can credibly scale to 20 billion, 30 billion, back then 80 billion or whatever, which if your clients are endowments, sovereign wealth funds, they have the
Yeah.
other problem, which is they're like, when I was raising for my like rinky-dinky hedge fund, I'd go to these insurance companies and they'd be like, well, we write $200 million checks and we can only be 20% of the fund. Right. And you're like, okay, I'll come back when I have
We
800
need to give
million.
you more money, basically,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
translate. Is like,
So we're,
you are
it's a
not
very
asking us for enough money. Yeah.
exactly. And so it's a weird, like alignment issue or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think back to the dollar and stables, like, you know, i- it's all the people who talk about RMB being the reserve currency, like there are no stables for the RMB. Why? Because you can't transact in RMB. The stables are in dollars. And I think as long as we don't mess that up, we're actually in a very good place for dollars
I think
over the next.
stables are super bullish actually for the
Yeah.
dollar. It's
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was what I wanted
you
to ask
unlock a
you is
new
like,
structure to the Ponzi. It's like not only do you have the euro dollars, but now we have like crypto dollars too. It's like we did oil, we did petro dollars, we did euro dollars. Now we're doing. It's so great, man. You keep finding new sources of exit liquidity just as you
well,
as
and
you
this
need them.
actually is like it's just very easy to adopt for the average person. Like you want to have like a neobank spin up and say like, okay, like we're gonna give you better yields than you will ever get on our actual native currency. The one catch is you've got to hold this digital US dollar. It's called like a stable coin. Don't worry about it, bro. And everyone's just like, yeah, sure, man. Fuck. Like it's better. It's like you give them the option between like 5% interest in some like stable yield versus like negative 50% like devaluation of your currency on a week by week basis as your government just infinitely hyperinflates you. And everyone's like, dude, dollars sound amazing. Like this is great. Stable dollars. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, and then to close the loop on it, like I think I wrote this piece called "War on the Dollar" recently. Like, it's not a surprise that Iran's charging the toll in RMB. This is a big deal. Like, there was a rumor today. I don't know if it was real that Russia's trying to sell all their oil now in RMB. Um, I think that is a real that
I
is
think
the
one of the
the real
big I think one of the big things, and like, does this ever play into your models? Is like, it's kind of a soft thing. It's like hard to quantify, but people really don't trust the Chinese, right? Which was different whenever you had these other, fourth turnings, or these empires like the British Empire giving way to the American, the dollar reserve, right? Is like people generally. Yeah, there was this great tweet a while ago, which is like, you'll miss the American when he's gone, who negotiates sharply but cheats nobody. And I think that's like relatively emblematic of the views people have towards Americans. They negotiate hard, but they don't really cheat you very much. Um, I don't think a lot of people feel comfortable having China as a counterparty. They don't, really know what's going on. It doesn't feel like you have a lot of freedoms. And so it's like if the dollar goes away, then, like it doesn't feel like there's a great other thing. Um, you know, and it seems like China for a long time has also stamped down. I'm sure this was one of the things. I think you're a little more hawkish on China than Ray. But China has also manipulated their currency down a lot to be more competitive industrially. Massive, massive, massive amount to suppress wages, to make sure they're incredibly competitive. They've dumped, a ton of commodities and industrial products as well. Um, what did you guys like? What's your thoughts there on like the alternative? Like, if you really think the dollar is going to go down, is it just metals? Is it?
well. China is interesting because right now you kind of got to be bullish the currency. I know I just talked about being bearish. Like, they had this incredible, to your point, trade surplus and they manage the currency low. And what they're trying to avoid is in those moments of current account surplus or trade balance surplus, getting all these capital inflows that cycle the currency up like in East Asia. And then when people run for the exits, it going, boom, 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 boom. And so they've done an excellent job of kind of breaking this monetary trinity where they manage it low, but they never let it kind of the bottom fall out of it in the bad periods. And then they try to manage the appreciation in the good periods. And it's very much about control. And so, for me, when you can get money in and get money out and not worry about it, that's when I get worried. I think I wrote a thing to G or whatever as a joke, and I was like, look, like you can be reserve currency, just like open your capital account. It's pretty easy. Like, let me buy it.
Yeah, but
Let me buy
they
the
don't
shares.
want to do it though.
Yeah, like good luck. And so I think that to me that is the and to be clear, like people get in trouble for saying this on the internet, but like you cannot short the Chinese people. You can't short their productivity. You can't short their creativity. You can't short their innovation. Like look at what's happening in AI. Um, but the banking
Yeah.
system is a reflection of the political system. So they're very tightly intertwined. Like they have the window dressing, the window guidance thing where the local guy comes and says, "You make a loan now," and like the guy makes a loan. We have some of that. It's not perfect, but it's a different order of magnitude.
So we kind of have this theory that you know how China would yo-yo Bitcoin around all the time, where it was just a meme for the longest time, where they would say like, "Yeah, we're banning Bitcoin, bros. Like, just like nuke the price down." Everyone's like, "Oh my God, China's gonna ban," and then they're like, yeah, I don't know. We decided we're not banning," and then it goes up, and they would just do this like once every month or two, and it happened for years and years, and it just became this huge meme. And then at some point, they actually did ban Bitcoin, right? And my theory was that like they basically just like they just kept using it to manipulate, and then every time they would say we're banning Bitcoin, like people would react less strongly, right? Because now they're like, dude, you've done this like 500 times, like I know what's going on at this point. I think they waited until the point at which their like boy who cried wolf claims that they were banning Bitcoin stopped having any effect, and then they said, okay, well that's it. This currency has no use to us anymore because we can no longer manipulate it with government news. We're actually banning it. Like fuck Bitcoin.
No, I mean that was why I wasn't bullish back in 2011 was because I was like, "There's no way they're going to let this thing persist as a capital flow," you know. And so again, smart when you feel smart in the short term and you're dumb in the long term. But no, I don't have any real outside baseball there.
Do you think the fact that it's managed to persist as like a financial, I don't know, asset, investment tool, currency, whatever we want to call it at this point, uh, is that like a proof that some big boy has enough that they care? Like there's someone at some position of some government that has decided to not just like nix this thing, like Bitcoin whale.
I'm not sure. Honestly, I'm not sure. Like I think again, like we talked about this a little before. Like I'm not even up on the quantum stuff. Honestly, it's just kind of like no, you don't know. Seems like that's been hitting it a little bit. Like uh, you hear all
Well,
kinds of
all
crazy
the
conspiracy.
to do a little bit of a shill for one of the sponsors, not financial advice, but every single like guy who got into Bitcoin early started like shilling Zcash to me like a year ago, and I missed the God pump. We got them as a podcast sponsor, but that's like that's like it's like you miss Bitcoin, and then you also miss Coinbase, and then you like get in on some like Coinbase Ventures thing like 5 years later. Um, I think I'm like very bullish privacy. Just in general, I think especially high net worth people are realizing more and more that I have all like they have all these paper assets, and on paper
They're
that
getting
seems
scared,
great.
dude. Like the big boys in America are actually getting scared. Like when they started talking about the wealth tax in California and like everybody thought it was a joke, and now they're gradually realizing like wait, these people actually like this is insane. Like they actually are going to try and like tax my unrealized capital gains. They're going to try and tax me like just base
Dude,
like
Netherlands set up a tax on unrealized, like they just nuked their entire startup industry. It's completely crazy. All over Europe, like none of the pensions are solvent. They like the UK has the triple lock, which is just the most like demonic macro thing ever.
What is the triple lock? Hit us with
The triple lock is like the funniest. Campbell, you might know the specifics of it a little bit more, but it's a system by which they adjust how much the pensioners in the UK system get it, and it's like either 2% or inflation, or as much as wages have gone up. But it's the higher of the three. It's the highest of all three. So it's just like the pensioners just like are outperforming the market like always. It's it's quite insane.
When we make monetary policy, it's the easiest switch ever, which should never happen, which is you just stop indexing it.
Yeah,
You just say
it's
we're
it's
holding
just
it
never gonna
constant.
happen though.
It'll never happen, no. But like,
It's
but like we
ruled by boomers all the way down, man. It is just the boomers are doing like the greatest exit scam on all of humanity. The entire Western, who would win the entire Western corpus of philosophy and civilization, or one boomer with a paid off home and a couple pensions from the government.
so I have this stick called New Deal, which is like what happens after the automation and the boomer thing, because like we're already on the right side of the distribution, but just the fact that we're on this call and it's that kind of thing. Like there's so
So
many
true.
people
Please glaze us more, man. We love
who
this.
it's but like
Everyone listening to this podcast is a genius. Can we hear you? Can we hear that, please?
I mean, think about the people who are not on the podcast. Seriously, these are good, well-meaning people who are they're coming out of school with like 200K of debt. They're trying to get some reasonable job. They're not like like, and they're
Not
looking
listening to
at
the Plausibly Deniable podcast. Over for them. Rejected. Do not pass
they
go. Do not collect
fraud prone.
$200.
Yeah, and or like you think about why people are gambling so much. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's so bad that people are gambling. Everyone's gambling." It's because they can't invest in Anthropic, they can't invest in OpenAI, they can't invest in all these like reasonable convex assets.
Or by the
They
time you
don't.
can, it's like an exit pump, right? It's like the SPACs of the
You're right.
the
It's like
COVID
nobody
surf
is
era.
IPOing right now in a situation where they're leaving money on the table, right? It's like the IPO is it's like your Series Z, right? Like you've made every single potential exit beforehand, and now it's like, okay, well, I guess get the
Who
retail
is
retards
the
in on this
dumbest
now.
money possible that I can
Yeah.
Yeah,
scam the most? And
And this
now
this
they're
we have
even
to.
actually
changing the index. They're changing the index rules. It's like it's actually ridiculous. They're trying to change the index rules to include some of these companies sooner. Just god tier exit pump. Some guy in China who's like short SpaceX must feel the same way you feel about the Chinese banks, basically. Um,
well, all of this happened in
And
crypto too. Like that's the other thing. We're literally like crypto and like the
it's
TradFi
unironically
system
worse
are
than crypto, man. We've never like not even in the wildest dreams of crypto did they like scam this hard, man.
the last crypto cycle was literally like this is why we invented meme coins as like an investment vehicle. I'm doing serious air quotes here, right? But like the idea was basically that like the previous cycle, all of these coins were things that like they were all VC polluted, right? Like VCs had been in the early rounds, and then by the time they released to the public at like a massive valuation, it was just VCs dumping all the time, right? And the average retail investor just didn't know this. They didn't know how this worked. They didn't know where the tokens were coming. They didn't know what market cap meant. They knew fuck all, right? So then they started making meme coins, which were just like, okay, there's no previous holders at this point, right? Like, I'm going to launch this coin on Pump Fun at $4, and it's like the holders are going to be like me and my like 20 friends that I sit in a Discord call with, right?
this is the solution to the problem we're describing, which is institutions are ossified. We need new pipes. We need new tech. We need to have Series A OpenAI shares in some meme coin that's actually a real financial asset. And this is what will happen eventually, right? We just need real financial assets that are viable in quantities that someone can blow their rent check on how many points are the Patriots going to score, which is already happening. But we tell them, no, you're not rich enough. Like, you're not rich enough to buy these like special securities. Only the like rich people in the club can do it. And like
Are we
that to
talking
me
about
is the
prediction markets here? Are we talking about Polymarket? This is amazing. Lucas is literally about to all over the screen right now. Someone else is doing his like episodic prediction markets, please. How do you feel about prediction? I was actually curious about this. Like, do we have a bunch of these like hedge fund guys and whatever that are trading these things? How do you feel about them intrinsically? How do you feel about them? Like, just take it away, kind of. I'm really
Well,
curious.
my assumption before you go is I assume that every fund has like one or two quants that are sitting there, and it's like they're not trading the fund's money, but like they've made it their pastime to do like Polymarket arbitrage using whatever they've learned from like TradFi or something like that. And
Well,
maybe they just maybe no one knows because they haven't told anyone. But like, am I right on that? Am
one
I?
of the big things is when you work at any of these institutions, you basically are not allowed to like do any fund bets ever. Like you can't like literal members of Congress who like write laws on these things are allowed to, slam, 20x long on Raytheon
And they're
right
like
before
public
like
portfolios, right? It's like they're making
declaring,
like
they get like a special
60x
briefing
like
on the war, and then immediately they're like, yeah, I'm gonna slam a 20x on Raytheon. Shout out Nancy Pelosi, the goat. Um, but you're some fucking, and like, okay, you're at Bridgewater, maybe you have some good information about flow and investment decisions. But like, even if you're some guy who's getting paid like 20K or 130K, you're like a first year analyst at a tier 2 bank that's like doing coverage on some stock, and now you're not allowed to buy anything in the only sector that you know. It's pretty crazy. And so I feel like you're saying, there's probably a bunch of guys here that like look at these prediction markets and are like, yeah, man, I'm going to trade this because this is all I can do. But yeah, take it away. I'm curious, like, what your colleagues think, what you think.
Almost certainly they're using it as an input, right? If you're not, you're doing a bad job. I think the only reason they don't is because of
Do you want
data
to
pipes.
explain what using it as an input means?
Yeah, like, if you're long oil or whatever, and you're not looking at Polymarket to see how the market's changing the discounted outcomes of what's happening in Iran, like you're just an idiot because those markets might have biases, they could be wrong, they could be full of insiders, but they're communicating information that is real time. And I think
There's real
hyperliquids
money
are
on it. Yeah.
there,
And
there's real
your
money on
alternative
it.
is like hiring some expert firm, right? Who's like just some guy.
Like if you're relying on a news source for this, who has more investment, right? Like a random journalist making like 85K to publish articles in the financial section of an outlet, or like somebody who's put like 500K on the position themselves. Like,
Yeah, if you work in finance, you believe in the power of markets discounting information. So this is a market that communicates information. Now, I think there's a gap between TradFi and crypto where crypto thinks that prediction markets will kind of take over the world, and they forget the kind of alpha beta framework of like the reason that pension funds, endowments, the reason that 401ks plow money into bond markets and stock markets is because they generally come with a risk premium, right? You generally make more money than you put in when you buy the stock market or you buy the bond market or whatever. Commodities are different because they have the curve and it's not always a EV positive bet. But most traditional asset markets, you're getting rewarded for providing liquidity. You could make an argument that the people who sell teenies on either side are kind of doing that, and so I think you'll see people that kind of create firms that do that programmatically, and you'll see people who harvest liquidity premiums by, you know, connecting Kalshi to Polymarket. I've looked a little bit at this. I don't love the like massive fees they're doing. I guess they got to make money now, but you definitely want those to be pretty tight if you can get them. But there's clearly information flow, and so you want as much information as you can kind of ingest. And so, Hyperliquid's another example where, and like, I have a couple shares or whatever, so I'm not like just for fun because I don't know the economics of the thing. But if you're holding a big position in the TradFi markets and you're not looking at Hyperliquid over the weekend, like you're kind of an idiot. Like
they're trading.
it's
They're also like the majority of the volume on Hyperliquid. And for the record, it's like it's basically a decentralized exchange that has the ability to trade things outside of like crypto now, right? Like they've added stocks, they've added futures, they have like oil, gold, etc. And actually now commodities traded on Hyperliquid, the volume is higher than it is for all crypto assets. So it has effectively become like, okay, like right now, the US government does this thing where if we're going to start a war, right? Like we're going to do a sudden like weekend takeover of Venezuela, right? Or we're going to start some sort of a thing with Iran. It's almost always going to happen in market off hours because that's just how Trump rolls. He's like, okay, yeah, it's like Friday night, fucking bomb them, bro. Light them up. And markets react to this in ways where previously you just could not capture any amount of the volatility that's going on here in any sort of like significant size, right? You're dealing with like after hours. It's just like, like shitty. Uh, Being able to like live trade this is kind of, it unlocks a lot. And it also lets you can actually just see how the market is moving, right? Like everyone is like, how will retail react to this? And they're like trying to form their opinion based off of 500 tweets that they saw from like a list of soccer moms that they track on X. This is the worst possible way to get information flow.
Yeah, I mean, it's not always right, but it's something, and eventually it will attract real money players, and you see it start to converge. It tends to
Yeah, and the
overshoot.
structure will get better,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
at this point, it's
and
like
then
some of these vehicles that supposedly have oil or whatever are a little sketchy, and then they get better over time. And maybe at some point, it's like you haven't properly de-risked that, and so you might have some pain. But in the long run, like it obviously the structuring will get better, and it's just cheaper, it's quicker, it's faster. It seems inevitable. But yeah, to your like hyper gambling point, I think a big thing is like the uncertainty. And it feels like there's like a strong subsidization, particularly in the United States, of like the lower middle class is like incredibly, incredibly subsidized. And then it feels like being upper middle class doesn't get you a lot. Or like certainly, this depends a lot how you break it down. If you use like the historical meaning of these things, or if you're like doing a 30-30-30 split of society. But basically, people feel like being like a little bit above the medium isn't that great. And so you either want to be a lot like you'd rather trade it all for a 10% chance of being really far above the medium. And I think it's related to the other stuff. It's like, right, like people with money, if you're some Russian oligarch, you got all your shit taken away from you. If you're some, whatever, Italian or whatever, oligarch, you start feeling the pressure in. So maybe you're like, oh, how do I, get encrypted money that's private and, they can't confiscate it for me? How do I get assets? Another disgusting show, the podcast sponsor, Citizen X. How do I get a passport somewhere else so I can repatriate? This is like one of the few ways you could move around during COVID. If World War III starts and kicks off, like, and you're stuck in, you're being Chinese, as the kids say nowadays, and you're hanging out in Shenzhen, doing some think boy posting about the industrial zones, and you're trapped over there. How do you get back? Right? It's like you need a passport, and so I think there's all these systems that people relied on, and it was kind of assumed that like
I think
they'll
Sayla's
just
breaking
work.
up a little.
Sorry, can you guys hear me? Yeah, it was assumed that these things would just work. Like like you say, right? Like a lot of these micro guys who go, oh, Snap will go up or down. It's like, well, what's your risk if World War III starts? Like you just go to zero. And I think all of that stuff is getting repriced very, very heavily. I think that's also part of. I think some of the software sell-off is like overzealous, but some of it is like, okay, wait a second, like what's the odds of World War III? If World War III happens, how many people are really spending money on enterprise resourced, SaaS, B2B SaaS? And it's like, oh, well, not a lot. You're going to really revise that budget.
Does everyone, okay,
So
is that, it appears to me that everyone sort of believes that in the case of a war, like, still nothing will happen. Like we're hitting such a point of like global desensitization of retail that like I'm pretty sure we could meaningfully kick off World War III right now. And it's like unless literally you are getting bombed, like personally, like you, like in your neighborhood, even you could have missiles striking down like 5 miles away from your neighborhood, right? And you would still be like, yeah, nothing is happening really, right? Like nothing continues to happen.
I
Uh
think the markets. You can take this one, Campbell, but I think the big thing there is like two things, right? It's like people really got inoculated to the argument of like, okay, there's a missile warning, nuclear missile coming to New York. It's like, okay, there's two things you can do, you either sell everything and you die, whatever, a little richer, or you buy everything, and if it turns out to be fake, you made a fuck ton of money, right? But like either way, if the missile comes, you're dead. Um, and then I just think also like retail got super trained to buy the dump. I'm sure you saw numbers on this, Campbell, but like institutional investors are the ones like fear selling nowadays. It's not like retail is literally buying when the like not even when the streets are red. Like the second there's like a pinprick of blood on there's like some red paint that someone like like misplaced or something, or like some little girl is like crying in the streets. It's not like the streets are running red with blood. Like go out and buy. It's like like oh we corrected 50 bips down, and then it's like everyone's like calling like Robin, place my trades, and then we end the day like 100 bips up, and it's like what was the catalyst? Well, the market went down, and people like buying the dip, man. People have been trained like dogs to buy the dip. I mean, for the past 15 years, if you didn't buy the dip, you're like a retard.
I learned this at Lehman. Okay, so Lehman, I was short from like January to September, basically.
Do you want to say what years?
This is 07, 08. Sorry. So this is like the Lehman blow up. I was like a second year prop trader. I made them like $10 in 9 months, whatever, being some smart little kid or whatever, but also not losing $20 million because you would just go to the guy who knew what the hell he was talking about and be like, should I do this dumb thing? And he'd be like, get out of here, you idiot. And then you like wouldn't lose $1 million. So like that was like how that went. But like we were like max short going into our own book, getting nuked. It was like the dumbest trade ever, like exactly what you just described, because the whole team was very short going into Lehman going under. Didn't matter. It's like, oh, you made a bunch of money on like a video game. Like, good luck filling out your unemployment.
It's the hyper gambling thing. It's like if you're not making $10 trillion, you great, you made 100,000, man. Like, who cares? You're still the permanent underclass, right? Yeah.
So I mean, I think the buy the dip thing's real. I think wars are interesting as a investor because really what gets crushed in a war is your currency. This is where usually the gold benefit comes from. Like, bonds get crushed, but then they buy the bonds. If you get a lot of hyperinflation, stocks do really well. You can look at hyperinflation environments,
Well, but gold,
in
like
nominal
metals are such a
terms.
weird place right now because they are so polluted with like retail insanity from the
Yeah.
gold run that like using gold as a hedge for war right now is like, dude, like I don't know about this, cousin. Like I'm not feeling
Yeah.
like I'm on the most firm ground.
Yeah. I mean, like, the war breaks out, Turkey and a bunch of other people, they're just reporting Turkey. Sell a bunch to get their liquidity and you get rinsed on your gold. I mean, this happened during COVID, the first couple of days of COVID. It happened in 08. Usually it's a good time to buy, but again, I'm just now sounding like a buy the dip guy.
I mean, as long as you can think about the time horizon, right? Like as long as you keep holding gold for another 80 years, you will eventually be back in the green, surely, right? Like you must be. Just think about it.
Dude, the thing about the macro trade is like the macro trade is also like the ultimate cope because you're like, no, you don't get it. Like
It
the other
hasn't
guy
played
is
out
picking
yet,
up
bro.
pennies
Just
in
keep
front of a
waiting.
steamroller, and then like he's literally picking pennies off of your corpse. Like, and then the worst thing that can possibly happen to you is like a macro investor who's like been holding gold since like the 13 dip or whatever, like since 2015 or something. The worst possible thing that can happen is some guy who like rode all the bullshit VC stuff like flips like 6 months before your trade starts printing, and you're just fuming. You're like, I don't even want to make money at this point. I want this guy to lose money more than I want to make money. Like you're just fuming. You're like, you got so rewarded,
Well, let me
Do
show
you ever
right
read
now.
you have a great Substack. Everyone should subscribe. We'll show the link. Do you ever have like Chamath subscribes and you're like, fuck, dude, like this guy's gonna do all my trades, make way more money than me with all his SPAC earnings?
I mean, I don't check the sub list that much. I'm sure sometimes you see your ideas like get reframed, but that happens to everyone. It's been happening to me forever. That's a part of the game. So I will say on air, I'm very bulled up on ags right now. Okay. Like, I don't know exactly which one,
You're very
corn,
bold
wheat,
on
sugar,
sorry, on what? On agricultural?
agriculture, agriculture.
Perfect.
Like the fertilizer thing's real. It's obviously a conflict trade. But fertilizers now, like basically you can't get it. A lot of it comes from the Middle East as a byproduct of natural gas. Where there's certain planting season where if you don't put the fertilizer in by a certain time, the crop doesn't do that well. I'm a little bit early. I'm usually a little bit early on these things, but
So
to me,
buy the
that's
SaaS crap now, ride it up, and then 3 months from now you
yeah,
execute Campbell's trade and
yeah,
totally
exactly.
mog him.
Yeah, exactly. And then post about it and get like a million likes, and then I'll just
Yeah,
say no.
yeah,
Um,
view mog you too, etc.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
I'm going to
But
rewrite
that
your Substack article, but for like people with a vernacular level that's like 95% lower, and it's going to get like 10 million views.
Claude, rewrite this for someone, like a 2 standard deviations to the left.
Claude, I need you to hit this in the fucking head with like a baseball bat. Like, I need you to just beat the fuck out of this essay until it is so retarded that everyone in the universe can read it, regardless of what language they speak. Like, not even English speaking is a necessity to understand this.
Dude, I'll say I never believed in gold or precious metals. And then I had an opportunity where I went into a vault with a ridiculous amount of gold, and I picked up one of them.
Right. That's it. That's the thing.
Dude, you know that like EA, it's like a very rationalist argument, like, oh, a person reads about the color blue for 1,000 years, and then like they, live in a red room, they've never seen the color blue, and then they finally open the door, they walk out, they see the color blue. Have they learned anything? Boy, dude, I learned something, man. Holding that bar of gold, I was like Gollum, man. It was like the ring. It was like, holy shit, like there was just blood memories of like killing millions of people for like a stupid shiny rock just coursing through my. You hold it and it's like, I mean, this is like a
This is why I bought
like a,
silver, man. Like, this is like the exact reason. This because you
dude,
pick it up and
you
you're just
hold
like,
it and it does
I'm a
something to you,
ball. Like,
man.
I'm gonna start uploading like pictures. I'm gonna make an Instagram specifically to upload like silver bar flexing pictures because of how this makes me feel. I'm gonna
Dude, I
start
think if
listening to
you
rap music for the first time in my life to play in the background of this.
just
Right?
money
Like,
spreading like silver. Dude, I think if you forced short sellers of like precious metals to actually like physically like borrow like a physical bar and then sell it for cash, I don't think anyone would do it ever. I actually think that would be like the number one market manipulation thing you could do to make precious metals go up is like force the people selling short precious metals to actually touch, like experience the thing of like holding
take
it.
custody of the collateral that they're
Yeah,
trying to
take custody
destroy.
of the gold and then go to a physical exchange and be like, yeah, I'm selling this to you for this like worthless paper money that like has only ever been inflated my entire lifetime. But like, yes, I am a serious investor, by the way.
So, okay, so you're saying that when you're saying that you are bullish on ag right now,
How does that get expressed, et cetera, et cetera?
it can't be like crop futures or something, right?
I'm doing the futures. Yeah, you can. There's some
Really?
ETFs. I wouldn't do that. I do calls on the futures. You can do the ETFs. I wouldn't do calls on ETFs. They're kind of illiquid and very expensive. Um, but yeah, I just bought the futures.
You
Like
can just buy a bunch of
I'm buying
sardines, man. Just buy a bunch of beer.
buy the stuff.
Just stock it in your
Just buy
basement,
the
bro.
stuff.
Dude,
I mean, look,
Lord
everyone's
knows the
out there
price
buying.
of a beer in New York is not going to go down. That's for sure.
People are buying oil, being like, oh, maybe oil is going to go from 120, 150. It's like if oil is 150 in July, like everything is very different. The curve right now, you guys, the futures curve looks like this. It's almost backwards. It's so backwardated, which is the spot price is like 110, and you go like 3 months out, it's like $70. So the futures markets are saying like it's gonna be chill really quickly. And so you can either buy this part of the futures curve, okay, or you can buy the thing that if the curve goes up is going to go totally parabolic. And so for me, that's supply chains.
So you
It's
have
all
like a
the
ton of beer. You have some Doritos in your basement. You've like stocked up, ready to
you
resell
take
these.
delivery of futures. You show up at
Yeah, it's
Chicago
great. You're on like
or
EBT too, right? Like this is all paid
yeah,
for
yeah,
with government money.
It's the classic egg trade, right? It's like the Reddit egg post meme where there's the guy who like bought 20 tons of egg futures and didn't realize he had to take delivery of them. And he lives in an apartment and he's now posting like, guys, what the fuck do I do? The truck just dropped off 500 pallets of eggs. Like, I'm so fucked. Does anyone want to buy them?
Dude, what I love is the stories about like the preppers who like realize that all their like MREs are gonna expire in a month, and then they're like, "All right, honey, like, all right, kids, we're all eating like canned tuna for the next year,
We're going
bros."
camping in the bunker for the next month.
Yeah, there's not a good prepper outcome really. That's was the problem with prepping. Like, you know, if you're really executing on the prepping,
The prepping, we talked about this before we went on there. The prepping is like move to like some ranch in South Africa or Uruguay or Peru. That's like the real prepper
The
thing,
problem, okay, the problem with prepping is, if we're being honest, the type of person who engages in this prepping behavior is mostly retarded. And so they're wrong about how everything is going to break, right? They're like, I'm a prepper, bro, so like I need to make sure I always have ammunition for my gun. So I got my 5.56 and I got my 9 mil, and those are the only 2 rounds that I chamber anything in, right? And then like an actual supply chain disaster happens and things break, and now those are the only 2 rounds that you cannot find at any firearms store in the entire country after only 3 hours of COVID, right? Because everybody else who prepped thought the exact same thing as this guy, and they're all like, ah, fuck, like I appear to not be super great at this. I should have bought like 450 Bushmaster ARs, right?
I
Like, that one
think
would still be
the
fine.
greatest like prepper trade you can do is like sell like a timeshare in a bunker, and then like if the world ends, rug pull. I think that's like the prepper trade is like sell tickets to the bunker, and then if the world actually like it's all upside always, right? Like you're either selling a piece of cement in the woods for $1 trillion, or you get a piece of cement in the woods
And it's
that
like all
like
the
is
people
now
who thought
the
that they could rent their like bunker, like they're like, yeah, I don't need to hoard guns or bunkers myself. Like this other guy will do it for me, right?
Yeah,
And then
I'll take as the world is ending, I will insist on delivery of the guns.
yeah, they have this piece of paper and they're like, I would like to take delivery, sir. And they just get shot in the face, like just instantly executed.
I'm gonna walk up to the guy who has all my guns, be like, "Oh, this piece of paper I have, you promised. Look at this text conversation we had 4 years ago."
I think it
Yeah.
makes sense to have a battery and some solar panels. That's the extent to which I'm more of a the lights are gonna go out for like 2 weeks kind of guy. That's how I think if you want to prep for something that's actually it's like a put spread, right? You want to cover like a little bit of that downside. If we get the zombie apocalypse, like
You're just
who
fucked.
knows?
You're
You
fucked no
can't
matter what. And
prepare.
like even if you survive, your life is gonna suck anyways, right? Like is the other thing. Like it is just like you're wasting $1 trillion now to have like a moderately better outcome if the zombie apocalypse happens. We were
And
talking
you're
about this
still
last
going to get
episode.
mogged by somebody who's just like less of a freak, right? Like if we do have the zombie apocalypse, all the people who are successful now are largely just going to pivot to whatever the most successful way to survive a zombie apocalypse is. And your
B2B
entire
chats,
life of
ERP for
preparing for a
zombies.
zombie apocalypse is going to be outperformed by like some guy. It's like by big balls, like the guy who was a member of Doge, right? You're going to get mogged by big balls as he pivots more quickly than you could have.
So I wanted to ask, so you told us you were at Lehman and then after that you went to Bridgewater, correct? Or was there some stopgaps in between? How long were you at Bridgewater for? What
Went to
years to
B
what
school
years?
for 2 years. I went to B school for 2 years, and that's how I ended up at Bridgewater.
Yeah, and then while you were there, is there like any anecdote that you can talk about? If you can't, we'll gloss over it. Maybe not so much. It looks like from the smirk.
Yeah, there's not that much. I mean,
You're
I
good,
would
man.
say,
Probably nothing interesting happened, man. Probably
look,
just like a very standard
no,
job.
what the house line, which is also true, is that you know most of the culture stuff that people hear about was the best intentions, and I think that you hear a lot of bad stuff about the culture from people who kind of got roughed up by it because they didn't understand what was happening,
It's the
or they
losers. It's the guys who left. That's what I'm hearing from Campbell here.
and just, or people came in thinking it was like Goldman Sachs, right? There were people that came in
Yeah,
and
it's
thought,
very different.
and they're like, I'm gonna play this game. And like it was a very different game. And like they kind of got spun around. And it's like, no, no, we're pursuing truth, like mostly pursuing truth. Like I
Yeah.
I probably have never met a
I
higher
think Bridgewater's
concentration.
mostly true believers. Like
Yeah.
vastly more than like a Goldman or, a Morgan Stanley or whatever.
Yeah, and I think I've never met a concentration of people that were on the right side of the distribution who are also good character. Like maybe Stanford Business School was at a place, but like it was the highest Venn diagram of that I ever had. So like that's why I pretty universally have positive things to say.
Yeah. Yeah, good guys. And so then after that, did you start like doing your own book or what? what happened after that, and like if you can a little bit about why you left. Don't tell us anything too crazy, but
It was mostly that I was inspired by Ray. Like Ray at 21 would not have worked at a gigantic firm. He would have gone out into the wilderness with his machete and sort of chopping through the jungle or whatever. And I got very inspired by that. And so, I wanted to work on two things. I wanted to work on my own firm, and I was very interested in convexity and very interested in options from my Lehman time. And, Bridgewater a little too big to do that. So I thought there was some niche there. I wanted to short China because I just became obsessed with like this like banking system thing. And I became very obsessed with AI in the workflow of investing. Bridgewater's a big systematic firm. They use a lot of data. I got very frustrated using data. And so I started a company called Rose, which was the kind of pipes you need to do AI investing.
then the other thing I really wanted to talk about, everyone's kind of been talking about it, etc. I think I think maybe certainly like very very highly informed. Maybe it's not exactly the thing you're most informed about, but you probably have a very good way of thinking about it. What do you think? What's your best guess, your best shot? Obviously, hard to say always, but like, where do you think this Iran thing is going? We chatted a little bit before we started airing about how it started in Venezuela and then Iran, and is this? I think this is a legitimate strategy of like you're cutting off China's legs and their infrastructure and their partners. Some people accuse me of like sane washing. What do you think generally, or like what have you seen that you think people are discounting or not thinking about?
Yeah, I get in trouble a lot for this, but I use the term mixed strategy equilibria as like a game theorist for what Trump does every single time, which is he kind of, in my opinion, knows the direction he wants to go, and then he creates a ton of noise along the way to shake out who's on his side, who's not, what the range of outcomes are, how to get closer to the middle. Like if he got elected and immediately said, we're going to raise tariffs on China 30% unilaterally, everyone would have freaked out. Right. So what happens? Well, he does this Liberation Day thing where tariffs go up across the board for everyone. And our friends kind of go to us and say, hey, can we make a deal? And everyone who has these like built up resentments or who's like finds themselves as a peer competitor basically says, let's
Yeah.
fight. So now you have a separating, what's called the separating equilibria, where your friends reveal
Yes.
themselves and your kind of competitors kind of reveal themselves. And I think that that's kind of the challenge in being in his position, if I can project a little bit, which is if you are hawkish, how do you communicate to the middle what's coming? And I think that we are in a period where that kind of globalist, kind of what I call the kind of sleeping hegemon or is basically dead. The post-war order is basically dead, and we don't know what's coming next.
Yeah,
Nobody
it
knows
seems like
100%.
everyone's like sleepwalking. It's like Lucas says I always do the relationship analogies, so just to spite him, I'll do another one. But it's like, you and your girlfriend are like hate each other, and everyone's been talking shit, and all the group chats get leaked. But like, she was at like spring break in Miami, and you were like in Italy or something, and like you have not yet seen each other again, and your things are still at the same shared apartment. And it seems like kind of slow careening towards like something's got to give. Um, I think Europe is like just doing the most insane things for the past 15 years. Um, I can't really, ring that alarm anymore, just with regards to everything like, the triple lock we talked about, the pensions, the economy, the partnerships, the spending on the military spending, and France has been better on some of the power infrastructure stuff, but Germany is just like total suicide, relying on Russian oil while saying that America needs to spend more money and we need to be more hawkish. Russia, really like insane, incongruent stuff. Um, so from your mind, it's like there is a strategy, there is a process here that's pretty that is like sophisticated to a degree. There's a lot of noise along the way. It's very Trumpian, etc. It's like a little showman-y, etc. He's optimized for TV, not maybe for diplomacy. Um, and then it doesn't seem like China is really reacting too much more than they have been historically, which is like, maybe they'll sell some weapon systems to somebody who's not very America aligned. Maybe they'll dump, some commodities or some industrial products, and wage a little economic warfare. Maybe randomly, oh whoops, we just we happen to have the Black Death sample on our hands. Two Chinese bioethicists just hanging out in Kansas doing what they do, like randomly. But it doesn't seem like there's any like huge movement.
Well, I mean, they're hoping we get sucked in. That seems clear. Like, there's this framework of the Rimland and the Heartland that I write about sometimes, which is not my framework. It's like some British guys from the 1800s or whatever, and the Heartland being kind of Eurasian continent, and the Rimland being all the kind of commercial, naval, basically the reserve currencies, more or less, empires for the past like 200 to 300 years. And the way that Rimland dies or loses against the Heartland is usually they get sucked in. So you think about Napoleon going to Moscow, you think about, the Germans going to Stalingrad or whatever, you think about the quagmires in the Middle East, you think about all these, the examples after time, after time, after time, where like you extend yourself into this like, you know, really inhospitable territory that you can't really sustain. And so they are rooting for that as much as they can. And they're hoping that we kind of alienate enough of our alliance structure that they can do deals with Canada and they can do deals with Europe, and they can eviscerate European manufacturing even more by kind of selling them all their EVs, and they can kind of get EVs into America with all this Chinese spyware by importing them into Canada. And like if you're Canadian or European, like I sympathize with their perspective because they feel like Trump's like picking on them. And they're like, hey, we're your buddies. Like, why are you picking on us? Like, what the hell, man? I totally get it. Like, and I don't begrudge them about all that. But I think it just comes from this like kind of
It's
the
also kind of a
duty or the
wake-up call,
obligation.
right? That they've been missing for a long time.
Yeah, and it's not their responsibility. Like it's not like it's like the weird thing of like when you're the CEO or whatever, and you see the person in the company who needs to get fired, like you're the person that has to go have that hard conversation. You're the person that needs to make decision. The head of product doesn't care because they're just like, oh, like Joe's like kind of like not doing his job or whatever. Like who cares, right? But when you're like the person who's responsible, it's your job. And so this goes to stuff that Ray told us now 15 years ago or whatever, but like being the point of the pyramid means you have to care about the carpets and you have to care about the chairs, you have to care about all the little things that the other guys don't. And so if you actually treat the Chinese competitive, where this could go seriously, it's just a radically different perspective where they are counting on us to protect them, right? And we are now asking them to step up their pain because we perceive the threat to be higher. And if they don't perceive the threat to be higher, they don't want to pay that cost because they're like, hey, man, what are you asking me for? Like, you're giving me more tariffs. Like, I just want to buy some cheap cars. Like, what the hell, man? Totally get it. And and it goes back to this like tinfoil hat thing. And you go, no, 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 you don't understand. You don't understand. Like, they're
You don't
coming
get
for the
it, man.
dollar.
It's the end of the world. And
Yeah,
they just look at
you
you
get it,
like you're
man. They're trying
insane.
to go, yeah, exactly. And so that like you can do that in a way where you try to explain it and you try to explain it and you try to like convince them. But if it's not in their interests or it's not in their like worldview, there's too much cognitive dissonance. You have to yank them into that reality. And maybe he's wrong and maybe I'm wrong or whatever in this like threat thing. Totally a possibility. But that's the big disagreement I find. And to your point, yeah, it's the Germany is the best example, right? When Ukraine got invaded by Russia, I mean, you remember what they sent the Ukrainians?
No,
A bunch of
it was
helmets.
like $3 or something, right?
It was helmets. They thinking like 10,000 helmets. Here's
Yeah.
some helmets, guys. Good luck getting bombed or whatever. You know what I mean? And again, I don't say that to be mean, but it's like now
I do
Rheinmetall
think
is
there's
going
like
like,
this
well,
weird cognitive dissonance where like Europe will talk a lot about like how the US isn't doing enough, and it's like the vast majority of the military aid for Ukraine, the vast majority of NATO spending, the vast majority of, all these contingencies and all these crazy things land squarely on American soldiers or on American shoulders. And but then at the same time it's like you're both not doing enough yourself, but you're also asking too much of everybody else. It's this very strange thing. where it's kind of like politics in the US or the way the world has moved, where it's like you no longer feel like you're inhabiting the same reality as these people. Like either you're wrong or we're wrong, but like someone is clearly having like a very distorted view of reality, because it's no longer we disagree if this was too far, or
Well,
whatever.
it's
But
one
like
of it's
we
one of these
materially
deals where
disagree
like
about what is happening.
this is one of those things where in any other point in life, if you're trying to cut a deal with somebody and you realize like, oh, like I just occupy a different reality. Like, we both just see the world so differently that like the things that I value and the things that they value have so little relating them that it's basically impossible for us to cut anything that both of us agree to. You just walk away, right? You just say like, I am not going to deal with this actor because there's nothing we can do where both of us will be satisfied with the outcome. It's just going to be resentment farming, basically, right? But it's like you can't really do that so much with geopolitics, it seems. So we're all forced into this extremely bizarre situation that would otherwise just be totally avoided.
Yeah, and it looks like they were going for a nuclear bomb, just a period, right? Like the
Yeah.
IAEA came out and said, "Oh, they have 400 kilograms, this, that, and the other." And like, if you're Denmark, like that's not your responsibility. You're like, "Oh, the other guys will handle it." Like I totally get it. But when you're
Well,
us,
because the other guys have been handling it for years and years, right? It's like you have a roommate who never does the dishes ever, ever. Like he just doesn't do the dishes. You're the guy who does the dishes, and then one day you show up and you're like, hey, if you don't do the dishes right now, we're all gonna fucking die. And it's like, dude, you've been doing it. Like, fuck off, man. Like, haha, whatever. Fuck you. Like, you're gonna do the dishes, man. I'm like, sorry, that's just not the social contract we have going on here. I'm like the cool roommate. You're the one who does the dishes. Um, and yeah, it feels very disproportional. And then obviously you have all the disadvantages of democracy, where the system has been very politicized, and the two-party system, and then also the globalization of politics, where like now you have politicians playing off of, instead of even like domestic politics, they're playing off of global politics to get reelected. So they're like materially invested in seeming like they are going against or in favor of certain politicians, whether that actually aligns with, like, it used to be, I think, that like foreign affairs was kind of immune to the political system, and like it really, you had like Clinton and Obama and Bush and all these people, really disagreed domestically on things, but internationally it was like, okay, there's like a pretty clear line of who's our friends and who's aren't our friends and whatever. And I think that's also just done. That's not really a thing. I think that's also part of what the European reaction has been, is like America seems like a more erratic partner, for better or worse. And so even, it's not just like, oh, you're asking me to do dishes, but like, maybe even if I do the dishes a month from now, you're just like not paying rent anymore and you're finding a new place. And so
yeah,
it's like, I think that stuff has been kind of very, very illuminating and interesting. But I wanted to get into some fun stuff. I don't know if you have any questions for us. I also want to ask a little bit about like hosting.
I do have one question that I've been meaning to ask for a while, right? So we have a macro guy, we have a gold guy, we have a precious metals guy, right? So it's like you are very much so in the real of this. This tends people towards like prepper ideologies, although not necessarily in the ways in which I was describing before, where the prepper is just an idiot who puts a bunch of food in like a concrete bunker.
I'm not calling you an idiot. I promise, man. I promise.
Correct.
I know I spent 5 hours calling preppers retards and I just called you a prepper, but I promise it's totally different.
I said most preppers are preparing incorrectly, but this probably makes you have like a really interesting perspective on like local AI and compute and how any of this actually plays out, right?
yeah, you got to be long local AI. I've written about this a lot. Like, in a year or two, and this is already kind of the case. Like these MacBooks can now run models that are about as smart as the models from a year or two ago. The logics, even for enterprise, especially for enterprise, just becomes so obvious, where you could send all your data to a company that's going to hold on to it forever. And this is your most critical, most important data.
And it's going to be
It
used,
can,
it's probably going to be used to reverse engineer everything that you've ever built, right? Like
yep,
at some
and
point,
it can be
I
used
mean,
in
these companies, all
discovery.
these frontier models, in theory, they have trained their existing frontier model on a bunch of copyrighted material, right? Like I haven't seen anyone really successfully argue that like,
Yeah, these aren't like the
OpenAI or
companies with the
Anthropic
most
didn't take
respect
all of the
for.
copyrighted like books, whatever, and use them.
Yeah, not the most respect for copyright law, right? That's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how deep that goes. Is it just automated? Do they crack open the thing? I think it is possible, but it just to me seems like pretty obvious that you're gonna get, people having servers in their enterprise again, servers in their home. Like, if you ever read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that's a local AI. You're gonna
Yep.
have that on. Someone's gonna make a Hitchhiker's Guide to their phone or whatever, and you can ask it questions, and it tells you if you're prepping or not. How do you do this stuff? And um, I have a dog, and I've many times been like, "Hey, what's up with my dog?" You know what I mean? And it gives me like a reasonable answer, and it's like, "Go to the vet, don't go to the vet."
I think like the models hit a crazy step function change like 8, 9 months ago, like some, like June roughly last year, where they started getting a lot more useful. I think a lot of that is like the personality or the harness as well. Like Claude,
Yep.
$1 trillion, like literally added like $100 billion, which is just like the model asks you questions, or the model doesn't like lie to you compulsively, or at least like lies to you compulsively slightly less,
The
like
model now
moderately
the model
less.
now asks at the end of every prompt, like, would you like me to do? And then it lists out three things that it can do that the average person did not know it can do, right? And you're just like, that
Yep.
one thing is like,
Literally
everyone
added like
says
$200 billion to Anthropic.
yes, like
Yes.
everyone thinks that these models got like massively better, and it's like, yes, they did. That's true, but like that's not actually why they seem so much better, right? It's a bunch of totally unrelated stuff. All the things that I use models for the most part, it's like I can do with like Gemini Flash 3, right? Like I can do with like a totally retarded, like very, very cheap model. It's not like I am not out here solving math Olympiad problems, right? I am very much so like reorder my groceries and add these three things. Like that's what I want from you, man.
Yeah, that's also like perfectly into what I was gonna say, which is I think there's also like diminishing returns to intelligence, right? Like, do you need, the Magnus Carlsen equivalent to, look at a photo of your fridge and figure out what you're missing? No, but maybe you do need a guy who's like not insanely cocky and incapable of asking you a question. Hey, is that, lettuce, or is that, whatever, is that spinach? I just can't tell. It looks like a green thing. What is that over there? Um, so I think that's also like very bullish local AI, because obviously the models, are getting more efficient, and then, your phone is always just going to have more RAM. Never short your phone having RAM. And then I think there's also been like a renaissance of people realizing that all this software has like insane amounts of garbage in it. And you mentioned the Chinese AI companies. I think they've been kind of instrumental in like actually pushing the ball, like Kimi guys, DeepSeek, etc., where they kind of show, hey, you can do more with less. Actually, like you can be inventive and you can do more with less. And it's kind of like poetry, right? Where it's like, oh, they couldn't get the Blackwell chips, and so they had a bunch of Chinese guys who, probably very incentivized to do maybe more and much more incentivized than the OpenAI guys. You can incentivize people downward with the stick instead of the carrot. And, they managed to do really amazing models that are very small. And yeah, maybe they're training it on Anthropic and it's not the most ethical thing. It is like kind of ironic for Anthropic or OpenAI to be like, oh, you're stealing my data. A little bit,
Right, all of these
it has
frontier
to be.
labs are constantly complaining that there's some group of Chinese hackers trying to distill their models down, and it's like they're saying this after they have trained their models in the first place off of the stolen data of like all of the human race, right? Like, and it's like they did this thing where they basically invalidated copyright law by training on exclusively copyrighted materials and then getting so big and having the US economy be so reliant on them that the government is like, fuck, I guess we can't really do anything about this,
This is
right?
like the
Like, I guess
will.
copyright laws just can go away now.
This is the Wilmanitis thesis, which is like there's one thing in the economy that has to grow 20 to 30% every year, and if it doesn't, the world ends. So if you can make yourself become that thing, you can like become totally indispensable and do anything. It's like the Wilmanitis model of the economy. I don't know if it's entirely true, but it is like very entertaining to joke about.
So,
Um,
what about you think about like investing in compute or like have you looked at like okay, like RAM prices, GPUs obviously. I've seen a lot of people saying like there's a lot of people that sort of have this thesis that's like okay, bros, like they spiked the GPUs, then they spiked the RAM, they're going to do CPUs next. And you're like, "Well, why?" And they're like, "Well, it's just the next computer part, right? Like it's they must spike the CPUs.
I think it's where the constraints are. Yeah. I mean, I've done a little bit in the photonic stuff, a little bit in the, I think the whole stack down to energy, like, uh, it makes sense. Like, we need more of this stuff. We know we need more compute. We know we need more compute. And so the capital markets and the investment cycles are very lumpy and we're all distracted. And so we go GPUs and then memory. And, I rode the memory train a little bit too. Um, but we need more energy and we need to replace more people with compute or
Yeah.
jobs, tasks with compute. And I think that that goes all the way down. And it makes sense that there would be returns to capital there, just like, railroads, there was return to railroads and it took 40 years and you had huge cycles up and down. Um, and so it does seem like we need more compute. And to go back to a second, something you guys said that was interesting, which I want to hit on for a sec, which is this diminishing returns to intelligence. Like, I think the models are getting more intelligent. The, the irony is that the reason that usage is spiking is not that the models are so much smarter now than they were 3 months ago. It's that the harnesses are better. The
Or there's like
hallucinations.
some think piece on X that like someone, like Gary Tan is like, you need to be wasting 80 billion tokens every day or you're going to get
I
fired.
changed my
And
life
then
by
Jensen
writing a
Huang.
blog that has 500,000 lines of code.
Yes, literally just a blog that has like 800,000 lines of code. Jensen Huang is just like posted up at his hot dog stand saying like, if you are not eating 50 hot dogs every day, increasing by 20% every fortnight, you're obsolete, man.
When somebody comes up to me and they start bragging about like, dude, my Claude token use this month is over like 500 million tokens, it's always just like, okay, this person is like, they're almost certainly a retard, right? It's like there's like a 1% chance that this person is like OpenAI's top researcher or something like that. And then it's like 99% chance this is the dumbest person you've ever met in your entire life, who's just like wasting all of his money building a 500,000 line of code blog that like, he just has like, and this is another thing that's very interesting too, is people are just getting AI psychosis now, and it's no longer interesting. Like you see it and you're like, he's got it pretty bad, I guess, right? Like it looks like Gary Tan's pretty cooked. But like this person,
Dude, the
like
big loss for me was Travis K. When that was like a hero, like a, don't meet your heroes moment, man. When he was like, I think I've solved quantum physics. I'm like, no, I loved you, man. No, don't do this to me.
Well, to this point, we're giving the robots more power. And I get in this fight with Doomers a bunch because Doomers basically often conflate intelligence and power. And they say the robot's going to get infinitely intelligent, thus it will be infinitely powerful. And then because of a misalignment, it will
It's
try
like,
to kill
have
us
you
all.
ever worked at a company, bro? Like,
Yeah,
do you
exactly.
think the C-level is very intelligent, bro?
Was the smartest guy in high school the most powerful guy in high school? No.
yeah.
Like, so like I think there's a process by which we give robots power. That process can be turned up or turned down. And that is a very important conversation to have that we should have. But that the intelligence is not the problem. The power is the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think, dude, my other thought with a lot of the AI stuff is, I think the best way to express some of these trades is not like going long some triple layered SPV that like the most cancerous. You're like, it's just disgusting. You're getting someone's like sloppy thirds or something. I think the best trade is just like hire a private army and clean up a block of San Francisco and just like sell that housing to some guy whose OpenAI equity just unlocked, like
Real
it just
asset.
seems, dude,
I mean,
hear me out. There's like a beautiful trade here where we get one of these tanker ships. Okay, hear me out, Campbell. Here's my trade for your fund. Okay, listen, all right, if you do this one to make $1 trillion, get one of these tanker ships that's stuck and can't do anything. Okay, refurbish it somewhere in like Eastern Asia where they're really battered by the tariffs and you can get like cheap. I'm gonna hit like every geopolitical point, man. I'm gonna hit all of them. Okay, send it over to the fucking Bay Area. Okay. get a bunch of like really hot Hapa, girls to live there, and then sell the rest of the space in your like trendy high-rise tanker ship off the coast of San Francisco's port. Sell it to OpenAI researchers, man. Okay, I'm telling you, $1 trillion idea. Okay, the way to express bullish. The way to express the AI trade is like real estate, and it's just the boomers, dude. The boomers are at the end of the boomers are always winning, dude. They can't keep getting away with it, and yet they are, dude. It's like the cosmic. It's the same way that like the other thing we were talking earlier about like how the hegemon, like how it ends, and it's like, oh, they get into the protracted war or civil war. It is just you can never short Trump, man. It's like the pilot thing, and it's literally like created for a movie. The most beautiful thing about like the American war machine is like not only, did this guy like go missing on Good Friday, come back on Easter Sunday. His first message apparently on the like emergency radio transponder was like, God is good. It's literally like it's just like a movie. The guy is like definitely like on that ridge, and he's like, dude, if I survive, I need to be able to sell these movie rights for $1 trillion. So he's like, the first thing I'm gonna say is God is good. Just like some crazy shit. They blow up the 2 planes that they first go in with. Total kill zone, everything. Like the Iranians are even saying like there's a bounty for a civilian arrest of this guy. They managed to pull them out with Delta Force. All of this stuff. And the best part about the American war machine is that like you just know that 10 years from now, Iranian kids are going to be watching this movie and like cheering along with the American protagonist, and it's going to make 10 trillion Zcash or Bitcoin or gold or whatever the fuck we use as money then. Once your macro trade finally hits, God bless, hopefully. It's like it's just going to be, it is like really amazing. And then the Maduro thing. So it is just this case of like, you're trying to get America to get protracted, and it just seems like America gets like a Trump buff whenever Trump's in office. Like all of the 50-50s break for America. You're like the Artemis launch went well so far, fingers crossed. Maduro was crazy. The people whined about the tariffs all the time, and like it turned out mostly fine. Now the Iran stuff seems to be mostly good. Citrini analyst number 3 made it out. Everything's looking up, man. It's like you won in the Olympics too. It's like you just can't take an L. It's that one guy who miraculously keeps pulling rabbits out of the hat. But yeah, it was it's crazy
The
times.
rent thing is tricky. Like we are walking a dangerous line there, just to be clear. Like,
Yes, but like, would you not have said this about like if someone called you and was like, "Hey, man, we're going into Venezuela," a day before we went into Venezuela? Would you not have been like, "This seems kind of tricky, man"? But yeah, it's been a pleasure having you. We'll let you go. It's gotten quite late. Amazing guest. Check out his Substack. Beautiful stuff. He complimented all of our viewers. We generally denigrate our viewers. Generally, we take the opposite tack. We talk to them about how we're jangling the keys and how stupid they are.
We're really tossing them a bone this time.
complimentary.
We're
I
like,
think
here's
I
this
just
guy who you can subscribe to him and he makes you money and says nice things to you. Like,
it sucks, guys. Don't ever do that. Just keep consuming our podcast. We'll have him on soon. We'll have him on again. You don't want to. He uses really big words, man. There's like 4 or 5 syllables in some of these. You don't want to. you don't want to deal with that. That's not for our viewers, man. But yes, Godspeed. Was a pleasure.
thank you so much for taking the time, man. It was awesome.
We should probably cut the recording just so it doesn't like loop at the end.
We should just keep going, dude. We should make it like 3 hours.
Yeah, we could just keep going. Just pretend that Campbell is on and it's just us. Dude, oh my God, it was so good. We shilled everything, man. Dude, he is just like this incredibly, incredibly intelligent guy. Like also very funny, great sense of humor. And I can't believe he came on and just like mocked us by being nice to our viewers. Horrible etiquette, man. That's like you go to someone's house and like you start feeding their dog like cuts of like cured meats or something. Like, dude, you're like
It's like the no. This is It's like the guy who has acclimated his girlfriend to like only the barest shreds of attention, and then like some orbiter comes in, starts responding to like every Instagram post with like a bunch of heart emojis and telling her how much she's
Yeah,
worth and
dude.
shit. Like you're just like, dude, what the fuck are you doing, man? Like I
Fuck
spent
out of here, bro.
years.
We
I
have a good
spent
thing
years.
going here. We have a good thing going here, denigrating our audience, man. Don't take this away from me, bro. Oh man, no,
You know,
just
what
like
I like what I
super.
like about the guy is like he is approaching shit from just like super goofy angles, and because of like coming from the macro background but being involved with AI, like you truly have such a weird perspective, right? Like how many people have we talked to that are involved with AI in any capacity that actually understand a market of any sort, right? Like
Yeah, I think what I really like, and this is something that kind of holds true across a lot of the Bridgewater guys, is these guys are super credentialed and super bright, but they really do the like meme of like thinking from first principles and very kind of coldly analyzing things and will entertain any idea. And they actually come to a lot of the same conclusions as like schizophrenic, like your uncle who's really racist at Thanksgiving. Um, and they're not very elitist at all. Um, I like that a lot. They have a bunch of crazy culture stuff. You know, obviously Campbell has a bunch of friends there, etc. And I think a lot of them are like true believers, etc. But they have like this weird system for rating people at the company. Bless you. They have this weird system for rating people at the company where like it's like radical openness. Like if your boss is like mean to you, you literally are like encouraged to go up and be like, "You're being a dick today, man." Like, and just everyone does that. It's like a whole different culture.
you
Um,
mentioned some about the culture when you were talking to him, and I just had no idea what you guys were talking about. I'm very unfamiliar with.
yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, he has a lot of friends there and whatever. But yeah, they have this crazy system called like the PIP system where you rate everyone. And like that's common, right? It's like you're like listening to this and you're like, Sayla, what do you mean? Like that's super normal, you know, everyone rates their boss and their boss rates them. But it's all transparent. Like you can see exactly how much everybody rated you. It sounds exactly like every effective altruist or rationalist thing where it's like, well, what if instead of having a relationship, we were all poly? Like it sounds like you're trying to change human nature, but somehow they seem to pull it off relatively well. Obviously, you know, he mentions, I think some people leave and they really don't like it and they expect something different. You know, they expect like it to be like a Goldman culture or a Morgan Stanley culture or a JP Morgan culture. It's not like that. It's very, very, very unique. It's more like Jane Street or like Silicon Valley in some ways. But great guys. I've read the Ray Dalio book. It's kind of long. It's good. He does seem to be like giga long, this like insane China trade. And that's just the thing with these like macro trades is like the time horizon for them is like 30 years and you can take infinite capital on them, which is like great. It's a great gig because you can just go to a pension that has like $1 trillion and be like, hey, give me 200 billion and I promise in 30 years you'll make money. And then like in 30 years they come back for their money and you either made them a ton of money or you're retired off of like the 2% assets under management fees that you've been charging them for 30 years. So it's like a great gig no matter what.
One of the few
Um,
win-win trades, right?
yeah, it's
There's
like one of
no way
those like
you can lose.
heads I win, tails I win. If it lands on the edge, I also just like charged you 2% for 50 years. um, but I have a lot of respect for them. They're good guys. The Iran stuff has been crazy. We have some secret stuff. I won't say exactly what. I don't want to overpromise, but there's a world where we do some pretty fucking cool shit. We'll see. We'll tease the viewers a little.
There's definitely a
Um,
world where there's definitely a world where the Iran incident is not the most important thing for the viewers of the Plausibly Deniable experience. You'll be like, who cares about
yeah,
Iran even after this, right?
yeah. I think we all like to pretend to care. This is like a big thing about like consuming news and stuff, and also why we like try to not, or at least like a big part of why I think it doesn't make sense to like be the most like serious about some of this stuff, which is like at the end of the day, very menial things affect your life much more than whatever the fuck is on the front page of the New York Times, whether they know the acronym for NATO or not. Like realistically, page 7, where like some building 2 blocks away from you collapsed, is like significantly more important, and that's like on page like 107, is much more important than like page 1 NATO is dispersing. But I think these things are important, and it's also just like a conversation topic, instead of like how's the weather or how's the fucking game. The other thing we're talking about
I
is
think the
like
important thing about like the Iranian war is much more so than like how does this impact anyone. Like people actually all just kind of like it's like market takes. People like looking at like a problem that has yet to unfold and saying like this is why I think this is going to happen, right? And like some people like doing this because they just like regurgitating the best thing they thought of. Some people or the best thing that they've heard from someone else. Some people like doing this because they actually like thinking about the problems. Some people just like arguing, but it's one of those things where like every single person in the human race for the most part can find like a reason to involve themselves in these geopolitical conversations where everybody is like spurging out, right? Uh, at a certain point, some people might just get tired of all this. Like I find it pretty hard to care about like anything that happens in Iran, uh, mostly
I
because
care mostly because it just
I care because other people care, and that's about the extent of it. And it's
I
just
care
like
because other people care. I care because like the market, quote unquote, and then I care because it does just seem that like Trump just fucking somehow can't do anything wrong, man. It's like it's getting pretty crazy at this point.
I like just
Um,
I like looking at the people who take every position on everything and just bucketing them into like are they right or are they wrong, right? And it's like you almost don't really have to care about any given instance if you just say like are all of the people who are wrong on this position or this position, right? And then if they're on the first one you
the
just say like
famous
okay, well the
counter trade
second is wrong.
strategy. This
Yes.
is
And
like
like
the world famous. I'm not smart enough to develop my own thesis, but I am discerning enough to realize who looks exactly like a soy jack. It's the
it
the
always
soy
works. And
jack.
it's like it's an infallible metric because being right about everything is very hard actually, right? Like you can have a hot streak where you're right about everything for like 2 years max, but like you just can't be always right about everything all the time. Nobody does it. Uh when
Even
somebody
if
is
you
like
are, the standards start like increasing. Like it's like, oh, but
yeah,
you didn't know this like little thing that was totally insignificant.
yeah, but you can actually be wrong about everything. Like it's very easy for a person to be wrong about literally everything. Uh and you can just find that person and do the opposite, right?
Yeah,
This was always
yeah.
my big dream in crypto was like I just wanted people to make like an inverse trading vault where I can find the biggest losers on the platform and we can just keep refunding them, right? Like I'll just give them like $100 every month to keep losing money, and then I'll just do the opposite of whatever position they
It's
take,
like
right?
fuck the insider traders on Polymarket. I want to know
I
who's
want the
the. I want to follow the
outsiders.
account that like always gets it wrong, and I'll subsidize him. I'll give him more. I'll give it more money so he can keep playing these markets.